Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Oldham County Fiscal Court. I'm David Vogel, Judge Executive. Happy to have all of you here for our meeting today on March 4th, 2025. If you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Holly Plain, please call the roll.
Magistrate Likens.
Yes. Oh, here.
Magistrate Tice.
I'm here.
Magistrate Woosley.
Here.
Magistrate Jeffries.
Here.
Magistrate Hounds.
Here.
Magistrate Hawkins.
Here.
Magistrate Dye.
Present.
Magistrate Logsdon.
Present.
And Judge Vogel.
Here. Having all members of the fiscal court present, this meeting is now in session. Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Are there any additions from magistrates?
Are we putting on the executive
Judge,
session?
Pardon?
I'd like to add, Building and Maintenance Committee recommending the metal roof for the existing fiscal court building.
All right, we'll make that number 4 under committee reports and
Judge,
we're also going to, pardon?
were we also adding an executive session or?
No, I don't plan to do it.
Okay.
Didn't get that. Let's see here. I also want to cross out item G, proposal for the HRA services from McGregor. We'll push that forward to the next meeting. All right.
Is that for time? What's the reason for that one?
Pardon?
What's the reason? Was that because of time or?
Well, I believe that one of the magistrates requested an opportunity for his committee to review that.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Very good.
So that's fine. All right. Hearing no further changes, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
So moved. So moved. Second.
Any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, time now for public comment, the time during our meeting when anyone who would like to address the fiscal court about a community interest item is able to do so. Is there anybody here? I see someone who looks like a tiger today here.
Jay McDowell, thank you.
Maybe,
for that. Whatever. A leopard.
A leopard, I'm sorry.
I've had more comments today about it. Good afternoon, Amy Alvey, Oldham County Clerk. As I promised at the last fiscal court meeting in February that once our 2023 audit was complete and was signed off by the state, that we would turn over the remainder portion of our excess fees for 2023. So I have a check today for $8,215.41. That brings the total for excess fees for calendar year 2023 that we turned over $602,842.17. So since I have been clerk, I came in mid-year of 2022. So 5 months of 22, all of 23, and what we've turned over so far of 2024 accounts for $1,384,516.75. And with that being said, we also got our state numbers that we get for how many motor vehicle transactions that we do in a calendar year. So that equates for all the hard work for my staff at all 3 locations. We did 78,814 renewals in Oldham County, and we did 8,420 transfers. So I'd be happy to turn over that check to you guys. So that kind of accounts
right.
for a lot of that money there. So.
All right, thank you, Amy. Good job. I didn't mean to call you a tiger when you're a leopard, and
It's better than a cougar, I guess
right.
you could say, you know.
And tell me if I'm wrong. It looks to me like your glasses actually match your dress.
I'm very matchy-match.
Pardon, they're
Always.
okay. All right, there we go. Thank you. All right, anyone else to address the court during open comment here? We'll move on, and I'm going to ask our county jailer, Jeff Tyndall, to come forward now. I believe Jeff has an item to discuss with the court. All right, I know you just got in here. You have to maybe catch your breath, but
I'm just, today, just want Jeff Tyndall, Oldham County Detention Center Jailer.
have you speak right into the mic because it might not be able to be heard
Jeff
in the
Tyndall,
back.
Oldham County Jailer.
Okay.
It'll bend up.
Yes, sir. Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
All right. Today, I'm just coming in front of the fiscal court to ask for approval to purchase 2 new vehicles. Our transportation team has gotten busier. The fleet that we have in service now isn't going to justify what we need in the future. And I'm asking for fiscal court approval to purchase a van and purchase a bus to transport inmates.
All right.
Judge,
Yes, sir.
Judge,
And should I?
this came in front of the Public Safety Detention Center Committee today on both purchases of the van and the bus. It was approved 3-0.
All
Are
right.
you making that motion?
And I'll make a motion to allow him to make this,
All right.
allow him to make the purchase and the judge sign the appropriate paperwork.
I'll
All right.
second.
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 On questions? Manager Woolsey?
Do you have a total on what both of those vehicles are going to cost?
Yes, sir. Total, it'll be $238,000. That's an estimate. The bus, we're looking at $171,000 fully equipped, and $67,000 on the van fully equipped. That's with lights, sirens, radio, all
Cage.
cage.
Okay.
Will you be surplusing any vehicles?
Not at this time, no. Mr. Chair.
Manager Jeffries?
Just a question on the, so that was 171 and 67, that's I mean, that's everything that you have to have in them.
Everything that we would have to have. That's fully equipped for transportation of inmates.
Okay, and how many do you have now? How many vans do you have now?
Currently, I have 4 vans.
Okay.
And they're all getting up there in mileage due to the federal transports that we do. And we're looking at getting a lot busier.
Right, okay.
So this is just to help us out to transport safely.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Will will it look like the rest of your fleet as far as color? Is it all going to be consistent?
It's all going to
and
be white. They're going to be unmarked.
unmarked? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Manager Logston?
So Jeff, what are transports? What are these transport?
These transports are going to be used for federal, local, and immigration transports.
So how far will you have to be I mean,
For the van purposes, it's for longer distances. This past month, we've been going to Chicago, St. Louis, Clay, Indiana, Leavenworth, Kansas, Boone, Kentucky, Bowling Green, Kentucky. What we're looking at is instead of taking multiple vehicles to locations, having a van will give us less officers.
Bus.
With the bus, we'll look at less officers and more inmates. So it's for safety purposes and keeping jail staff inside the jail for these longer trips that require more than 10 people. The bus will hold 22 inmates and 2 deputies. So a total of 24 seats.
so you're going to get these 2 new vehicles and you're going to keep the other ones that you
Yeah,
have?
at this time, yes, sir. There's only one right now that's up there in miles. There's one up there at 170,000 miles. We're only using that for Louisville transports only. Eventually, I mean, this is to get us by currently.
So while you're up here, when they open up the new courthouse,
Yes,
are
sir.
we going to be, will it be mostly video arrangement or will you be hauling them back and forth? from
We
down
do,
there?
right now, we work with the sheriff's department. If the judge, for any kind of pretrial or arraignment hearings, the inmates can do that at the jail. We have video arraignment for that. If they have to go to court for their sentencing, then myself or the sheriffs, we work together and we team up. It's the sheriffs normally do it, but they're busy at the courthouse as well. So we will take officers off of our floor, bring them to the courthouse, drop them off, and if they can get them back to us, that's fine. If they can't get them back to us, then we will pick them up. It's a team effort.
Judge?
You missed
Sir
New
Magistrate
Orleans.
Jeffries.
Yes, just, what make are the vans?
They are Ford. They're brand new Ford vehicles. They're and I'll leave a copy of what the estimates look like, but they're both Ford.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
You missed New Orleans.
The ordinance? Did
New
I miss it?
Orleans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a nice drive.
It's all good.
All right. Are there any other questions to be asked? We've got a motion on the floor to approve the purchase of 2 new vehicles for the Oldham County Detention Center. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you, Judge.
you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate what you're doing there. Thank you, Judge. All right, we have our, under county administration, we have our bills to pay. And when you're ready, we'll take a motion.
Make a motion to pay our bills.
Second.
Any questions on any of the bills? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Now, under community business, we have the second reading of a public hearing for the Oldham County Entertainment Center, ordinance number KOC 25-920-081. And our Oldham County Planning Director, Ryan Fisher, will lead us through that.
Hello, Judge, Magistrates, thank you for having me before you today, and County Attorney Baxter as well. So we are before you today for a zoning map amendment for the Oldham County Entertainment Center. That is ordinance KOC 25-920-081. So that application, I've got a real quick presentation, and then the applicant and their counsel are here as well to speak on behalf of the applicant. So this application was filed by Jamp Enterprises, LLC, for a zoning map amendment for a proposed family entertainment center located at 1155 and 1175 North Highway 393 in Buckner. Property is 2.23 acres in size, and currently that zoning is I-2 heavy industrial, and that proposed zoning is C3 general business district. Just want to make sure, is everything okay?
Oh, yeah. No,
Okay,
no,
all right.
perfect,
I just
fine.
didn't know if you lost your video feed. So the proposed location, just across from Oldham County High School and their new soccer facility, in front of Clayton Lambert, and in between the recently built Aaron's Orthodontics and the Marathon, Save a Step, whatever it is there on the corner. So it's going to be the property there that is in between those two properties. You can see the current zoning on the property is I-2, which is consistent what has always been there with Clayton and Lambert and those manufacturing buildings in that general area. A little bit of the site history. So this was heard by our Oldham County Planning Commission back on December 10th. Meeting date was a little abnormal because of the holidays, so it was actually in early December. And at that particular hearing, the Oldham County Planning Commission recommended the approval of the zoning map amendment to you all for that family entertainment center. Now, that motion did pass on a vote of 8-5. Those meeting minutes were placed into your staff packet, and there was initially a motion to deny that zoning map amendment request, which failed on that same vote of 8-5. It then passed on a vote of 8-5. One of the magistrates a couple days ago who was looking through the staff packet did notice there were a couple errors in that planning commission, those planning commission minutes, and it has to revolve around the bold parts after each waiver approval. It does say on there approval of the zoning map amendment on a vote of blank to blank. So just so you know, everything is correct in the motions, everything is correct in the staff report, everything will be correct in this presentation. And at the Planning Commission meeting at the end of this month, we're going to go back in and make those appropriate changes. So just so everybody's aware, if you happen to see those on the Planning Commission minutes. So those minutes were placed in your staff packet. And once again, that motion did end up passing on a recommendation of approval to you all on a vote of 8-5. At that same hearing, they did have to ask for several waiver requests. The first one, the Planning Commission did approve a 10-foot vehicular use landscape buffer area waiver. And that motion passed on a vote of 9-4. They also passed a waiver of an interior landscape area in 2 different areas of the parking lot, and that motion passed on a vote of 8-5. And then they also passed a waiver of the maximum impervious surface area for that parking area. That motion passed on a vote of 8-5 as well. So after all of that, the Planning Commission did approve that preliminary development plan, and that one vote passed on a vote of 13-0. So a lot of different motions and votes that were carried out by the Planning Commission on December 10th. Along with that development plan, they did approve 3 binding elements that went along with that development plan, and they were really the 3 pretty standard ones that we have in all of our hearings, is that it only applies to the plans that were presented at that December 10th Planning Commission hearing. There can't be any changes, and it's got to comply with all of our current requirements, federal, state, and county ordinances. And those are 3 pretty standard ones we put in all of our hearings. A little bit of this case history, you can see, I won't read you all of these dates, but this is pretty extensive. So we started meeting with the applicant back in 2023 in April, went through several different revisions to their plans, and brings us really here to today on March 4th for the second reading and public hearing of this zoning map amendment. But you can just look through that. Once again, this is also in your staff packet, just showing all those different hearings we went through. The technical review committee meeting minutes are also in your staff packet, as well as their neighborhood meeting minutes and sign-in sheet that they went through on October 17th of 2023. So in short, the applicant is proposing a 19,267 square foot family entertainment center on that 2.23 acre parcel next to Clayton and Lambert and across the street from the high school. So the applicant is seeking a zoning change from I-2 heavy industrial to our C3 general business district to allow for that construction of the proposed family entertainment center. According to our zoning regulations, the purpose of that C3 general business district is to provide appropriate locations for a wide variety of businesses, but really is not characterized by anything that has extensive warehousing or frequent heavy trucking activity. These plans were also included in your staff packet, albeit a little on the small side. I will let the applicant go into more detail as to what's included within this facility, what types of entertainment we're thinking about, as well as the general layout of the facility. And if we need to go back to this slide for any reason so you can view it on the monitors, we can definitely do that as well. So in summary, the zoning map amendment is before you today. The applicant's requesting the approval of that zoning map amendment, which will take the property from I-2 heavy industrial to C3 general business district on that 2.23 acres of land. And with that, I believe that can...
Okay,
Yep.
okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing type session, and we're going to have different people speak, and they're allocated different amounts of time during the meeting. All those who are going to speak here today must remain here to answer any questions from the fiscal court. If you speak and leave the meeting, your testimony will be stricken. All individuals who are going to speak today are going to be sworn in, so I'll ask everyone who intends to speak today to please stand. All right, do you swear to tell the truth, the entire truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. All right, at this point, we're going to have an application or presentation by the applicant, and you're allowed up to 50 minutes if you need that much time. So please introduce yourself and then speak into the microphone.
Judge, members of this honorable court, good afternoon. My name is Mike Swansburg, and I'm with the law firm of Swansburg and Smith, 117 West Main Street, just on the other side of the courthouse here in LaGrange. Pleasure to be here in front of you this afternoon. I'm actually going to take this off the screen. I do have a presentation, but I promise that this plan is in the presentation I have as well, so this is not going to be your last opportunity to see this to the extent that you like to do that. Ryan, I'm sorry, I'm going to go ahead and minimize you out. Thank you very much. And can everybody hear me, by the way? Just want to make sure I'm talking to the mic and that everyone can understand what I'm saying.
You could speak louder.
Okay, yes, ma'am. I will do that. Okay, as I mentioned, I am actually here representing Jamp Enterprises LLC. Well, who is Jamp Enterprises LLC? And I've got a member here, and actually the owner of the property and the developer of this particular property, Adam McIntyre. He's the A in Jamp Enterprises. It's 4 individuals who got together and formed a company for this purpose. Mr. McIntyre, I'll let him talk more about himself, but is an Oldham Countyan who's also the architect on this project and the developer on this project. Like I said, he's the A in Jamp Enterprises, along with 3 other partners. I would start with, well, what are we here for? What's the ask that I'm actually here talking about? And that is that we're coming before you all seeking an approval of an amendment to the Oldham County zoning map for that entertainment center located along Kentucky Highway 393 in Buckner to convert the property that you see here right now in the red circle to this. And this is, again, a bit of a blow-up of that presentation or that plan that you saw just a second ago. I want to talk a little bit about the project's history because I think it's important to understand how we got to this point, and quite frankly, want to impress upon everyone here and the public the amount of time and effort that the developer has spent in this case in terms of trying to put together the best possible plan to get us to this point. So when we talk about the history of this particular application, Jamp first met, as Mr. Fisher indicated, with the planning and zoning staff back on April 26th of 2023, almost 2 years ago. They had an initial discussion about this proposal at that time, and then after that discussion, they actually incorporated a lot of the suggestions that were made to them at that point into their proposal, and then submitted that proposal to be considered by the Oldham County Technical Review Committee for consideration, which occurred on November 15th, 2023, nearly 7 months after they met with the staff. So again, over the course of 7 months after meeting with the staff here, they went back and looked at the plan. They decided to make some revisions to it to try to incorporate some of the suggestions at that time before they went to the Technical Review Committee to get that feedback from those governmental agencies and the members of the public at that point who might have some technical revisions, corrections, concerns that are incumbent upon them for that purpose. So intermittently, so again, you go in front of the Technical Review Committee. They receive the information from the Technical Review Committee on November 15, 2023, and then they don't go in front of the Planning Commission until December 10th of 2024. So almost a full year went by between the Technical Review Committee and the Planning Commission. Why? That's because during that time frame and after going to the Technical Review Committee and talking with members of the public and listening to some of the feedback that was given by the public, Jamp went out and they talked to external stakeholders. They talked, for example, with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. There were some concerns about traffic, for example, the road that is currently there versus the proposed 393 connector that's going around the other side of Clayton and Lambert, for example, to try to work on, is this a feasible project as it is and how it is expects to be with that anticipated road change. That's at least a series of communications that occurred over that time. And also, quite frankly, to talk with a number of supportive citizens, individuals who were excited about this project. And I think it's a really cool project. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I'm going to own it, that I think it's a really cool project. And there are people who also had expressed some concerns. And the developer in this case was absolutely open to listening to concerns and taking that feedback and incorporating it into the plan that was ultimately put in front of the Planning Commission on December 10th. So again, there's a course of a year where they're going back and making revisions to the plan. And by the time that plan is actually heard by the Oldham County Planning Commission in December of 24, it is significantly different in terms of what it is trying to accomplish than what was originally proposed in April of 2023, after getting all of that feedback. I want to talk about the Planning Commission hearing, and Mr. Fisher already went over most of this, but I think it's important just to reiterate that on December 10th, Jamp went in front of the Oldham County Planning Commission. There was a lengthy, about 2.5 hour long hearing, getting information, feedback, talking with members of the Planning Commission about that, a great conversation. And during that, Jamp actually made 5 separate requests, as Mr. Fisher highlighted for you earlier. 3 waivers in terms of waivers from certain regulatory requirements, 1 zoning map amendment, which is why we're here today, and then 1 development plan overall, which again is the actual concept that we talked about. After careful consideration and after that 2.5-hour deliberation, the Planning Commission approved all 5 requests that were made at that time, including the request to recommend to this body that the zoning map be amended to change the current zone from I2 to C3. And then ultimately, as you may have seen on the last slide, the Planning Commission approved the preliminary development plan, the concept that we're talking about, by a vote of 13-0. So after all the discussion, after all of the waiver requests and all of the feedback, the Planning Commission ultimately approved the concept that we're intending to build here by a vote of 13-0. There's the development plan again. This is the entertainment center that we're talking about. I want to talk a little bit about what it is, and Mr. McIntyre will follow up with me and give a little more about his vision of this project. This is his baby, and I don't want to steal his thunder on it, but I do want to talk a little bit about the development plan and what actually we're trying to accomplish here for you all to be able to see that and appreciate that. Proposal. So again, we're talking about a state-of-the-art entertainment center. Well, what does that mean, entertainment center? And what we're talking about is combining a number of different types of concepts within this 2.23 acres that is ultimately desired to be developed in this case. We're talking about at least 6 multi-use courts, primarily for pickleball, but also to be used for other purposes when necessary or when requested and available. So again, we've got a indoor pickleball concept, right? The idea that pickleball is taking off across the United States. We want to have a facility right here in Oldham County where individuals can participate in that fast-growing sport. And then also on top of that, we've got an outdoor lawn and games section. Enticing for families, friends, acquaintances, for business purposes. For example, this is going to be an area where people can run around, they can relax, for example, and enjoy themselves in addition to either playing pickleball. We talk about outdoor lawns. That the best concept I can possibly think of in terms of if you've ever been across the Big Four Bridge over into Indiana and Louisville, and you've got Parlor Pizza there, and then you've got another venue that's right beside it, and you've got a bunch of outdoor games. For example, you've got I'm going to butcher all the names, but Frisbee into trash cans, for example. You've got big tic-tac-toe, all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of thing that I'm thinking about when I talk about this. And again, Mr. McIntyre can elaborate on his vision for that as well. But that's the kind of section we're talking about when I say outdoor games and outdoor lawn section for families and friends. There's a playground concept in this particular proposal. It kind of looks like a bunch of like mechanical pieces put together here, but this is actually the playground concept that's also incorporated into the entertainment center. And so it's not just for adults. It is also a place where children are also able to go and to play and to interact with others as part of this particular proposal. And then finally, this particular section over here is the cafe kitchen area. The former of which the cafe is going to border a drive-through lane, which you can see right here, where patrons can purchase coffee and other items on their way to or from work on a daily basis. So again, it's a multi-use concept, entertainment center, again, being these pickleball areas or a sport area that we're talking about, outdoor games section, playground, and cafe and kitchen incorporated within that 2.23 acres right here in Buckner, Oldham County. And all of this can be accomplished, and in fact needs to be accomplished, only by changing the designated zone from I2 to C3. That's why we're here.
Right.
We want to be able to build this, but we need the zone to be C3 instead of I2. So, of course, as a lawyer, I always talk about what are the factors that a legislative body needs to consider when thinking about a zoning map amendment. Guiding standard, of course, state law establishes the initial guiding standard for that, and it says, quote, before a map amendment is granted, the fiscal court must find that the map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan, or in the absence of such a finding, that one or more of the following apply. And in this case, we would argue B, that there have been major changes of an economic, physical, or social nature within the area involved, which were not anticipated in the adopted comprehensive plan and which have substantially altered the basic character of the area. That's KRS 100.213, subsection 1 and 1B. So let's talk about the comprehensive plan. That was incorporated into that statute as talked about there. From our perspective, of course, the comprehensive plan has identified a number of land use objectives which we think are appropriate in this particular case. And I've given you 3 in this particular slide. I'll be happy to identify them again later on. First one would be land use objective LU-1-1, which talks about encouraging compatibility with surrounding land uses and government services. 2, land use objective LU-1-3 sub 1, which relates to development in areas with existing infrastructure and services, right? Utilizing already existing services rather than necessarily going into an existing natural area where you have to actually put those services in for the first time. It encourages that type of development or reuse. And then on top of that is the third one, which is encouraging the highest and best use of existing industrial and commercial land through flexible land development regulations, right? We want to be able to use existing industrial and commercial space to the best possible extent. And that includes vacant industrial space that's not being used for anything else. Let's use it for something better. And in this case, of course, that proposal for us is the entertainment center. So we got some adjacent property classifications. We talk about adjacent property uses in that land use objective. So I'll just, full disclosure, my map here was taken off the GIS site for Oldham County. Mr. Fisher's map looked a little different than mine. So I'm going on what I pulled off the map here, but the property that we're talking about here is the one that's in red. This is the property that we're looking at right now to be developed as part of this process. And again, we're asking that this body change it from I2 to C3. And what, at least according to the zoning map on GIS shows, is that there are at least 4 properties that are within a very short distance of the property that are already developed as C3 zones. So it's not entirely out of character for this area to have a C3 zone for a particular lot. As you can see, there are actually multiple areas that surround this property that also have that zone designation. And of course, the property will seamlessly tap into existing government services, including water, sewer, fire protection, among others. And this is all discussed at the Technical Review Committee, then incorporated into the proposal that went in front of the Planning Commission. That is part of the process that has already been well discussed and well established for this property. Let's talk about an alternative argument just in case. So if it's not just that it comports with the land use, but in fact the statute also contemplates that the use in that area, the character of which has changed such that this is necessary or that this is desirable. And so this is an alternative argument that I would propose for this honorable court, is that right now, of course, the property sits adjacent to Clayton and Lambert right there off of KOI 146 and 393. JAMP purchased the property that we're talking about here from Clayton and Lambert because the latter doesn't use it really for anything like it might have in the past. And because its own property, that being Clayton and Lambert's, is going to be impacted by Kentucky Highway 393 when the Transportation Cabinet ultimately moves forward with that proposal that everyone is more or less aware of at this point. So the character of this area is changing as we're sitting here. In many ways, it's changing in real time, but it certainly is anticipated to change once the Transportation Cabinet moves forward with that project that we all anticipate happening here in the next couple of years. And of course, it's not being used at this point for anything, bless you, sir, that might have been used in the past. So we would argue that the nature of this area is in fact changing, and it is inviting for a proposal like this. I would submit that the current designation of the property as I-2 is outdated. It may have worked when Clayton and Lambert was there the first time, but of course, that has subsequently changed. C3 designation is more appropriate for the property at this point. Mr. Fisher's already identified it, but just to reiterate for everybody, the C3 or General Business District is to provide for appropriate locations for a wide variety of businesses, commercial, mass merchant, and miscellaneous service activities like this proposal, but does not include land uses characterized by extensive warehousing or frequent heavy trucking activity. And that doesn't apply in the particular case. We would submit that this proposal fits within that C3 designation and it was also approved and recommended by the Planning Commission back in December. All right, so we have some other considerations and issues. And what I want to talk about here for a second is, as part of this process, starting back in April of 2023 and leading up to today, there have been a lot of discussions about some particular issues that I really want to make sure that we address head on. And I'm not going to, in any way, shape, or form, hide the ball on this. I just want to go ahead and get it out there. So let's go ahead and talk about some of these issues. First one is, let's talk about alcohol. Alcohol was an issue that was brought up very early on in this particular process because back in April of 2023, when this plan was originally discussed with the staff and when it was originally proposed, at that time, there was a brewery concept. And there was concerns about having this brewery located where, in this space right here, you've got Oldham County High School there, you've got roadways, there's a concern about it being in this space, right? Those were all taken into account when JAMP went back and went over the project and decided to revamp it. Between the Technical Review Committee meeting of November of 2023 and the Planning Commission meeting of December, JAMP again considered that input from all over the county, and it ultimately revised the plan to be an entertainment-forward concept. It dropped the brewery concept, and it's now focused, as I mentioned before, on the creation of this pickleball court component to it, the outdoor lawn and game, the playground, the cafe kitchen, right? So we scrapped the idea of the brewery, got rid of that, so it's non-alcohol forward. Now it's actually entertainment forward, right? It's actually again, encompasses everything that I talked about before instead of focusing on alcohol. I don't want to hide the ball here in this case. The applicant envisions, to the extent that it is approved, whether it is approved by the county through the local alcohol ordinance or through the state, for example, and the Department of Alcohol Beverage Control, that there will be, they anticipate the possibility of selling alcohol at the venue, but it is going to be done in conjunction with food through that kitchen, just like a normal restaurant would be. So for example, if you had let's say for lack of a better term, an Applebee's or something like that at this particular location, where food is actually the main component part, but there would be alcohol sales. They do anticipate that being part of the process. So again, I'm not trying to hide the ball here on this, but it is just a component part of the kitchen that is part of that new design at the end of the day. So we're not broadcasting like we might have before, this idea of, hey, here's the brewery, come get your alcohol, have a couple of beers, and then hit the road. It's actually, we're coming here obviously for entertainment purposes. Individuals who are there may be able to, in between, before or after their pickleball game, have a drink if they want to. But again, that's not the focus of the project. It's not the focus. So I want to make sure that, again, we're being honest about it, but I'll understand that that is not the focus of the project, and the developer has no intention of making it the focus of the project. Just again, and as a way of comparison, I wanted to make sure we highlighted this for the court's purpose. So again, that JAMP as desire to potentially sell alcohol does not make it an anomaly for this area. It doesn't make it unique for this area. And one of the concern was raised at one point about the location compared to Oldham County High School, and you have alcohol in the high school, for example. I just want to point out to everybody that there are 3 properties, as best I can tell, that border Oldham County High School that legally sell alcohol. One is the Victor Liquor Store right there off 146. The other is the Marathon Gas Station. And then the Oldham County Country Club, which wasn't quite able to get on here, but it's this property up here north of the football field on the map. So as of right now, there are 3 properties that border Oldham County that actually currently legally sell alcohol without problem. Without problem. This is just my personal favorite one. It's really more for the public. The idea that you got the Victor Liquor Store and you've got the Lady Colonel's dugout and the third baseline right there in the same image. So again, there's not really much of a distinction, a cutoff, any kind of separation between the school and alcohol in and of itself. And again, the idea really is to ensure that that the purpose of the entertainment center again is to focus more on the camaraderie, the family, the friendship elements to it, the sporting element to it. For example, the place for kids to go than it is the alcohol. And I just point these out for members of the public who might have expressed a concern about this being an issue in its relationship to the high school. Traffic. Let's talk about traffic. One of the other issues that has come up and a consideration for people is traffic. You got Kentucky Highway 393. You've got concerns about, for example, school traffic on any given day. We talk about the potential impact of this project. So questions about traffic were brought up with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet all the way in the beginning. We talked about it with the Transportation Cabinet in terms of the idea of having to revise our entrances, for example, onto 393 and whether or not we had to change the locations. There's been some discussion. There's been a traffic impact study done that I don't want to speak for Mr. County Engineer and the provider of that traffic impact study have gone back and forth on, and ultimately the determination has been made that the actual number of people coming in and out of this, ultimately, I will use this term, is going to have a negligible impact on the traffic on 393. Will it have some impact? Sure, statistically speaking, it's going to have some impact, but is it going to have a negligible impact, or is it going to have a substantial impact on the actual roadway at any given time? And the answer to that, based on the numbers, is no. Anecdotally, of course, there may be days where heavier traffic than usual. That's entirely possible. But statistically speaking, based upon the numbers, the conclusion is that it's not going to have an impact such that the Transportation Cabinet had articulated any concern about it and ultimately raised no objection to the plan that was proposed and ultimately supported by the Planning Commission. Pedestrians. So we're across from the high school, right? And so there's a concern about having individuals cross over from the school into the entertainment center, and what is that going to do in terms of safety there in the roadway? And that's certainly something that the county is rightfully and appropriately concerned about, and that's certainly something to be addressed. But what I would say in response to it for this particular project, there's a couple of things. One, just full disclosure here. So I'm the assistant Commonwealth's attorney and the assistant Henry County attorney. So, of course, criminal law for me is foremost in my mind a lot of times. At the theoretical level, KRS 189.570 provides that pedestrians crossing the roadway at a point other than within a marked crosswalk shall yield right-of-way to vehicles upon the roadway or be subject to a fine of anywhere between $20 to $100, right? So theoretically, someone who's walking across the street there who doesn't yield could actually be cited and fined for that purpose. I get at the end of the day that that's the theoretical, that's the ideal situation, right? That people will just simply follow the law and won't worry about it. I'm also a realist. I understand that that's not always going to be the case. So let's talk about a little more of the practical level. At the practical level, the proposed development contemplates significant parking on the property itself, which should invite patrons to actually stay on the property itself rather than trying to park somewhere over in the high school area and walking all the way down there. So again, here's the development plan. And I'll highlight for you the fact that the development plan contemplates the construction of a significant amount of parking. It's not a situation where we think, there might be just about this much, and then people are concerned, well, I won't have a place to park, so I need to go somewhere else. Oh, the high school sounds really attractive. I'll go over there because there's parking. There's actually, again, working with the county, working within the confines of the comprehensive plan, for example, and the ordinances here in Oldham County. The proposal incorporates significant parking, right? So that people should not have a problem parking in this area, ultimately. We would submit that it is one consideration. So the Transportation Cabinet has put out a traffic operations guidance manual. And the guidance manual talks about what do you do with this interplay between pedestrians and roadways in Kentucky, and how do you mitigate those issues? And one of the areas I would like to point out for you is Chapter TO-609-4 of that guidance manual states that pedestrian accommodations should not be provided at locations where the roadway design will not safely accommodate pedestrian movements, right? So, for example, if the Transportation Cabinet doesn't find it to be appropriate or safe, they won't, for example, put in a thing like a crosswalk. And some people talk about, well, what about crosswalks, for example? The Transportation Cabinet will get to dictate whether a crosswalk occurs over a state highway. And if they don't think that that's going to be the case, they're not going to provide it. Rather, what the Transportation Cabinet says that you should do is you should address it in some manner or discourage people from crossing it by using methods such as signs or fences. It doesn't say that you discourage it by limiting the ability of people to develop a piece of property. What you say is that if it's going to be developed in a manner that might be enticing, you should discourage it by putting up things like signs or fences. That's what the Transportation Cabinet says is the best way to mitigate these particular situations. That's in Traffic Operations Guidance Manual, Chapter T0-609-4. What I would just say from a philosophical level is that individual human behavior can't be regulated through land use concerns, such as zoning map amendment requests. We can't stop people from doing things. For example, we can't stop them from making bad decisions. What we can do is create an environment for them to have alternative choices. So, for example, having excess parking, for example, discouraging them from actually using the roadway as a crosswalk at any given point over 393. But we can't stop people from doing it ultimately. And land use concerns, development, and zoning map amendments should not be approved or denied, I would submit to you, on the basis of concern about individual human behavior. So again, talk about the development plan. Here's ultimately what we're talking about here. We can't accomplish this without the C3 designation, which is what we're asking for. I promise I'm going to stop talking here in a second and let some other folks talk. The summary of the request for us. So in sum, we are asking respectfully that the fiscal court approve the amendment of the zoning map from its current I2 designation to C3 on the following basis. One, that it comports with the comprehensive plan. It comports with those three areas at a bare minimum that I identified for you all a few minutes ago. Two, on the basis that the character of the property and the adjacent properties has changed, thus necessitating the amendment. Again, the use of the Clayton and Lambert property as it currently exists is not the same as it used to be. And four, it's necessitating a change in some way, and we think that this is a good use of that change. Three, it is consistent with the adjacent land uses, as I've already highlighted on this in terms of other areas that are also C3 in that area. Four, from a practical perspective as well, what I would submit to you is that, and Mr. McIntyre can expand on this, but Oldham Countyans are looking for, from what we hear, they're looking for a venue within this county. They're looking for a venue within this county for entertainment purposes. They don't want to have to go to Jefferson County all the time. They want to be able to stay here. It's a great place to live and work here in Oldham County. It is. And they love being here, and people don't want to have to drive 25 minutes into Jefferson County for this purpose. So what we think at the end of the day, and the reason why we're here, is to submit to you that the proposed development fills a gap, a noticeable gap here in Oldham County in what is otherwise one of the best places to live and work in this Commonwealth. And with that, I am done talking. I will be happy to answer any questions, but if Mr. McIntyre wants to add any additional points for you all to consider as well, we'd be happy to.
We'll save the fiscal court questions for later. Mr.
Sir, thank you.
McIntyre, do you have anything you'd like to add? Yes, please. Sure. Just give us your full name, please.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Adam McIntyre. I'll be succinct. Mike is very thorough and did a great job. So I don't have a lot to add in terms of the technical detail, but I'm one of your neighbors. I live out here in Oldham County. My three kids went to OC, right across the way from the property that we are talking about. I am the A in the acronym there of JAMP. It's Jim, Adam, Max, and Paul. The P in that is Paul, and he actually lives less than a mile away from this location. His kids went to OC. In fact, he actually still has one there. We bought this property years ago with the vision to actually do something that we would like to visit. We live out here. As Mike said, there's a little bit of a void of enough things to do for, especially when my kids, before they went to college, as a high school age, something to do. We hear that all the time. I wish there was more to do. We took that to heart and bought this property with the intent, actually, to do something out here of our own. So just a little bit of background. I am an architect. We design and build entertainment facilities all across the United States. And I can guarantee you've probably been to one of the facilities that we've touched. We've done a number here in Kentucky. We've worked extensively at the Louisville Zoo. We've worked for Fraser History Museum. Mega Caverns, Kentucky Kingdom, Malibu Jacks, all over. So we've done this locally and then across the nation for a lot of folks. We've learned a lot of what are the best practices, what are things that people want to do. So this was an opportunity for us actually not to actually just go and build something for somebody else, build our own place. So we bought this piece of property, albeit a somewhat challenging property. It has its issues, but there's no such thing as a perfect development piece of ground anyway. We knew this was going to be a long road, and it has been. It's been well over 2 years. We've been going through this process. We've been a very active listener in this process. As Mike has alluded to, and Ryan has said, we have met a number of times with the various entities, listened to community feedback, and changed our plan many, many times, even behind the scenes, just internally. What's the best mix? What do we think is going to work? What do we think people are going to do? Being a developer really means being fluid and listening to the process. So we've landed on what we think is a very strong entertainment and sports forward facility. We're very excited about it, and we hope we're here at the end of our journey so that we can get on to building. But I just wanted to introduce myself and be prepared to answer any questions that you all might have that myself or Mike have not already covered.
Right, thank you, Mr. McIntyre.
You're welcome.
Now, we'll move on to the second phase of the hearing here, and that is testimony and questioning by those who are opposing this application. Is there anybody here who stands in opposition or wishes to question the applicants? Please come forward. And
He wasn't here in the beginning, Judge.
I know. All right, I know you weren't here when we swore in the others, so Blake, you raise your right hand, please, and you swear to tell the truth, the entire truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
To the best of my knowledge and belief, I do.
Right. Please state your name, please, even though we all know you.
My name is Blake Hazelton, 2644 Sheffield Court, LaGrange.
Okay. Go
Anything
ahead.
else?
You're on.
Ready? Okay. And I wasn't here. I got here late. I apologize for that. And I'll just make very brief comments. If you've read the planning and zoning report, which I thought was excellent, the staff did a great job on it, I thought. The attorney presenting it has done a really nice job, I think. And then the owners, I think, are competent and good people. The 5 points I would have, and they're based on the presentation I just saw, is mention was made of parking on site. And my concerns are related to safety issues about kids. And I'm not talking about kids that drive. I'm talking about the kids that are on that campus that don't drive, that will zip across the road on the way to the entertainment center. These are kids I'm talking about, not adults. I think that the comment about you can't stop people from making bad decisions, we do that every day. And we prevent them from being in scenarios where they make bad decisions and eliminate the opportunity to do so. Basic common sense, I think, would indicate that the design, the location, et cetera, are there because of the attractiveness of being next to a campus that has 5 schools on it. So the idea of having a family entertainment center, I don't have a problem with the family entertainment center. I do think it's a challenging architectural scenario when you got 2.23 acres of property trying to squeeze everything on there. It's a nice idea, probably a welcomed idea, wrong location. Okay, there are a number of other places in Oldham County that are already zoned for this type of scenario, and an I-2 is not one. They've got to change the zoning of the property, and then they've got to get a number of different waivers or et cetera. I think they had 3 different waivers on requirements. So I would just mention those things. I don't think there's much more to say. I was concerned during the presentation, and I thought that the discussion was good at planning and zoning. There was one comment made, a question about alcohol. And the comment was made by their attorney, as I recall, that their long-range plans are to have a restaurant or a facility there that would serve alcohol. That's another issue that's not there now, or not in the plan now, but I think was something that they were looking at. So I would just ask for your consideration of the types of issues that are there. There is no crosswalk in that area. You've got to go all the way to the end of the block down there where the roads connect to be able to get to a crosswalk. So the idea that you're going to have people cited for violating a crosswalk violation when a crosswalk doesn't exist and won't exist is, I think, questionable. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition or question the applicant? All right, seeing no one, we'll close that part of the hearing. And since there seems to be no opposition here to speak, would you like to, there's no need for a rebuttal. Would you like, I don't know if you want to take another minute or two to summarize what you have. I think we all heard it clearly. We could probably.
I don't mean to interrupt, but point of order, there was opposition. I think the applicant is entitled to get up and rebut comments made by the former superintendent.
Okay.
He spoke in opposition, I think. Did you not? Blake? Yeah, so Mr. Hazelton spoke in opposition, so I think the applicant is
All
entitled
right, there is
if
a
they
need
want
for
to.
rebuttal then, so the applicant can now address those concerns. Thank you.
I can at least speak to the point about the availability of land. If anybody here has tried to purchase undeveloped land out in the county and then to sit on it for this process, anybody going through that knows that it's challenging to do. There is land out there. Finding the exact right piece of ground is always probably one of the major concerns of looking for anything like this. I think one of the reasons that we've also gone through this process and it's taken so long is that the facility that we are looking to do actually doesn't fit just perfectly squarely within the ordinances and the regulations here. We're trying to do something just a little bit different. So being able to pull that out here and plop it in exactly the right spot is sometimes a tough land. So we did look all over. This happened to be one of the few pieces of ground that came up 2.5 years ago when we were looking to find this, and was the ground that we purchased. And we've tried to work within the confines of rules and regulations here that's been presented to us, and that's why we are at the spot that we are in.
All right.
As far
Thank
as
you.
the availability of ground.
All right, thank you.
And Judge, members of the court, if I could just real quick as a summary on the, the other concerns that we were talking about here, for example, alcohol, crosswalks, pedestrians, for example, these are all concerns that were raised as far back as April of 2023 when we first proposed this. And since that time, I just want to reiterate, the developer has gone through an extensive amount of revision and collaboration with agencies, with stakeholders, with taking into, again, account the concerns of the public to try to create a project that makes it less enticing for those concerns to exist. And so, again, ultimately, that is what we are wanting to highlight for you, again, is that we're not unmindful that, just like any other property, there might be some concerns in some way, shape, or form. But I just want to reiterate that the developer, in this case, JAMP, has gone through a significant amount of work and time and effort to try to address the concerns, as I've already highlighted in terms of my initial presentation, and just want to reiterate that again for purposes of the court in rebuttal to those individual items that were addressed that I believe I already talked about in my initial presentation. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. At this point, we'll close the public hearing, and we'll come to the court now for questions and discussion. So in order to get this on the floor, would somebody like to, I guess we can want to make a motion, or do you want to ask a question?
I was going to ask questions.
I think we need to make a motion first, then we'll ask the questions. Someone make a motion here.
I'll move to approve this project, Judge.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the project. Questions now, Magistrate Logston.
Yes, sir. I just have a few questions. How many parking spots are there total?
That number's moved around. If I could bring the plan back up, it floated around, it's between 90 and 100. It's close to 90. It was between 88 and 98.
Yeah, I tried to look it on the map,
I
and it was so
counted, there's about
small.
100.
It said anywhere from 84 to 150 is what I could read, but it was so small, I couldn't read it.
Yes, and my eyes are getting worse every day here. Apologies. The only reason I don't know the number is because we worked very hard to get as many as that we possibly could. We knew parking was always going to be an issue. I would love for this parking lot to be filled as much as possible, but that's not really how this always works. You know, you drive around any place and parking lots are 90% empty. So it was enough that it satisfied the program that we have.
Okay. And my only other comment, the only thing that concerns me about this is the same concern that Mr. Hazelton had, is the kids crossing the road. You know, kids will be kids, and they will cross that road. And we just had that problem over in North Oldham, high school, middle school, elementary, where we had problems with parents parking across the street and the kids running across the street to go to school. So those are my only concern, is parking and the kids running across the road, and when there's not going to be any crosswalk. And I don't know, I know it's a state road, so you have no control over that. I didn't know if there was any way that one day we could petition that. Jim, I don't know if that's possible. I know we can't ask you to do it because it's a state road, but that's my only concern about this whole project.
So I'm not an expert in this, but again, reading the manual that we talked about before, there is a discussion point in there that you would end up talking to the particular division in which Oldham County sits and with the Transportation Cabinet and asking them about that for them to consider whether that would be an appropriate addition to that roadway. So they get to make that decision. The one thing I would just say that we had this in another project, not related to this one, in terms of pedestrian traffic on a busy roadway. And one of the issues that was brought up too is that there's also and again, the cabinet can probably speak better than I could, but there was a countervailing viewpoint on crosswalks, which also was that if you put a crosswalk in, you also invite people to cross the road now, as opposed to, because now you actually have an area where they actually feel that now they can cross it. Although again, obviously crosswalks are designed to help, facilitate who's got right of ways and everything else. But for some people too, it's also an enticement on that front. But that's a cabinet discussion
I
ultimately.
think the building will entice them to come over there.
All right, Magistrate Jeffries.
Yes, just a couple of questions, and I guess I'd address my first question to our county attorney, Mr. Baxter. The motion that Magistrate Dye brought forward, does he not need to put some reasons in there as to why the zoning map amendment is appropriate?
He does.
Okay. Okay, because that, I think we just need to make sure that I think Mr. Swasberg outlined 4 reasons or whatever, so I just want to make sure that we have a valid motion on the floor.
He did, and he included some areas in the comprehensive plan that should also be included in the motion.
Correct. So Magistrate Dye, that would be my request, that you more clearly define your motion.
Well, I was aware I had to put all of the comprehensive plan things in there, but wanted to get it started. I just wanted to, so in all fairness to these gentlemen to come in here today, let me find these real quick. Let's see.
Okay. That was my
All
question.
right, Magistrate Hawkins.
Okay. I wanted to address something that Dr. Hazelton said today, and then also at the Planning Commission regarding, and then what you all brought up too regarding KYTC signs and fences and mitigating pedestrians to and from the high school. And to reiterate something Dr. Hazelton said was protecting these kids from themselves is what we do, taking into consideration things like seat belts and guardrails, for those that might drive too fast. We have guardrails up and we have seat belts as a law. So is there in your design, and I can't tell because it's, I would need to zoom in more, are there signs or fences planned to be around the property so that it's a deterrent to kind of cross and come through the right of way in the grass and onto the property?
Signage, yes. Right now, there's no fence that's planned for the front. You will notice on the plan, though, again, you have to squint at it, I understand. There is no, there's no sidewalk, though, that goes along the drive. So we were trying to discourage that type of behavior. So running just a sidewalk straight down towards 393 would have been an encouragement. So we were pretty cognizant of moving that entranceway down as far as we could and then not putting a specific, pedestrian invitation directly across from the school. It is vehicular in nature. And if you notice, there is one entrance on 393, and then the other one is actually on a shared drive with Clayton and Lambert. So it actually goes between the gas station there on the corner. So it's a little bit of a J-hook around the other side. So both of them are really just encouraged to be just vehicular.
I would like to add a binding element of a 4-board fence around the property as a further deterrent. If you would be agreeable, if Champ would be agreeable to that.
There's potentially an encroachment issue. We're already asking for a waiver for some stuff up front there because it's tight. And if you, again, squinting at this plan, there's been some realignment here on the right side. We're losing some ground as we go to the right. So one of the waivers is actually a landscape waiver because there's not enough room there. So while we are not opposed to that, I think that might require further study with probably Jim Silliman and his team to work through what that easement up front looks like. On the surface, I wouldn't say yay or nay at the moment, which without further study. It's tight, and there's a lot of grade. If you've been over there, if you notice there's a bit of a strange double swale over there. A lot of that has to be reworked too. And again, with where the new boundary goes, it's possible, but there's some topography to deal with.
And I understand the deterrent by not putting in a sidewalk. What would be another plan for deterrent should the 4-board fence as a deterrent, sort of a barricade, not be able to be implemented?
Possibly, and I think, I'm sorry, and I think that's what you were saying is the landscape itself might be a deterrent. Again, there's also a swale, call it a moat, right across the front, in the areas on flanking both sides of the entrance drive. That plus the right amount of plantings would be, I think, appropriate along here.
I've got more, but I would like the engineer's opinion on that. Also, Ryan, would you tell us the future land use for that area? And we can come back to you on that if you want. Has the parking changed since the Planning Commission meeting on December 10th? Because there were islands proposed, parking islands in the parking lot. So
The parking has not changed.
okay. So you came forward with those islands in the parking lot and then requested a variance that was granted. And so it hasn't changed since that design and proposal?
That is correct.
Okay. Did it, when it at first, a year or 2 years ago, was a couple years ago, was it initially, are you the group that was planning on it being a bowling alley?
Yes, that was on the.
Okay.
We did a survey and asked the experts, which are my kids and their friends, what they'd like. What do you like to do? Like, why would we drive into Jefferson County? And we like to bowl and play mini golf and do all sorts of stuff. Everything made the list.
Sure.
Bowling is. I would love to have bowling alley out here. It's fun. The challenge with that is the size and the length of the building. So. And it's very expensive. Bowling's about $80,000 to $100,000 a lane. So this is going to be about $1 million scope item. So it's one that when we had to constrict the plan going through this process, which was reduce to be able to fit all of the things that needed to be here, which are water retention and parking and all of the things that go into the bucket, we decided to drop that off the program, unfortunately. Now, we did size the building that maybe in the future I can put some on the inside, but at the moment, dropped out of the program. So we leaned more just sports forward. So you see multi-use courts, primarily pickleball forward. I'm a big fan of some of the more obscure sports, so other things that would take up court space, in terms of like volleyball and handball and roller skating and whatever needs to be done. So multi-programming for the inside here.
Esports is a big thing.
Love it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Okay.
I'd have people do that here.
And this may be a question for Mr. Baxter, but as I understand, just from kind of keeping up with it the last few years, is that the intention is that it's trying to be sort of a classy establishment. And would that be fair? Okay.
As opposed to?
Right. Okay. So should an ABC license be issued, my question is, could we add a binding element such that if you were agreeable in adherence to a no alcohol advertising in the windows or outward facing or anything that could be seen from the exterior of the building, looking toward the building in the windows as such, as far as alcohol advertising? Do you think that would be reasonable?
That'd be fine. I think they're a little gaudy.
Okay.
So yes, we are classy then.
Okay, yeah, that's, so that was, those two things, and then I would also like, looks like Mr. And do you have a future land use? Yes. Mr. Fisher?
Yeah, so the current future land use on this piece of property remains industrial, but as you know, that was last done in 2019. We're in the process now of looking at a new comprehensive plan, but as of right now, it's industrial.
Thank you. And then if Mr. Silliman can ask my question, and I can reword the binding element, the second binding element.
And was your question about the potential for barriers or?
Right. So as a binding element, the implementation of a 4-board fence surrounding the property, would that be doable?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and answer one question real quick.
Sure.
You asked about the number of parking spaces. It's 93 on the plans. So
93.
93 is shown on the plans. The challenge, as they mentioned, with the barriers, and I call a fence a barrier, is there is the one, you're right on the right of way. So what the transportation cabinet would allow in the right of way is potentially nothing. It also borders. There's a 15-foot sanitary sewer easement with a force main. So that utility might not allow a fence in line with their utility, because if they have to do work, they have to
7 feet on both
excavate it.
sides.
So I can't answer that, whether they would allow it. So they're right in stating that they're limited in what they can do because of these restrictions.
Did the situation pass to where they were going to do an underground basin instead of an outwardly facing basin?
Right. Currently this is shown with an underground stormwater detention system as opposed to the more typical open basin.
And so with that structure, you could.
It will have to be designed when if approved here, they would submit those stormwater calculations and construction plans to my office for review, and we would make sure that it meets our criteria. One concern would be that the outlet of that structure, that there's grade for that to flow out somewhere else, because it's already submerged. So that just has to go through that review process. As it's shown, it's very preliminary.
So if it should that pass, then you could dig posts for a fence, correct?
Well, that's nowhere. That's
Is it in a different location?
this hatched or dotted line area is where they show that proposed underground detention, and that's under the parking, which is typical. Typically, underground stormwater detention is utilized when there's limited space, so you can put it under the parking. But that's not anywhere where they would put a fence. No.
we could put a fence around the parking lot and around the drive-through, however.
Well, again, I think that would involve some coordination because there are already waivers for the landscaping. Is that right? There is. It's a little challenging.
The waivers for what?
Landscaping? That was correct.
That was one of the waivers that we asked for, because of how narrow that is right there. And again, the loss of the little bit of ground there because of the, I suppose it's what KYTC wanted to get there on the right-hand side, the southern portion of the ground.
So are you saying it's impossible, or it could be incorporated in with the landscaping?
I think what I'm hearing is that it's a maybe, but I don't think we're going to be able to come to that determination here today.
I think it's a challenging maybe.
Yeah. So.
Who would that be? Could it be on the edge of the parking lot, surrounding the parking lot?
Where do you already have your
Judge? They're just right there. It's right up against it. And it's also subject to approval when we put our final landscape plans together. It wasn't part of this original development plan. That's more kind of detailed design that we would get into after approvals with the right engineers. At this point, yes, I'd have to leave it in the maybe category.
However, I think a barrier is meant to be a continuous barrier, and you still have the entrances. So, and they rightly put an entrance opposite the Oldham County High School entrance because you want those lined up. But then I think you're just encouraging someone to run from driveway to driveway, and you're going to concentrate it right there. So I don't know that a fence benefits that or changes the concern. And while I'm standing here, I'll take the opportunity to say that that's been one of my concerns, and the applicant and myself have obviously both thought about this more since the Planning Commission hearing. Their presentation reflected this, but creating an attraction across from this it's a concern for kids. They mentioned it. Dr. Hazelton mentioned it. Kids running across the street, especially when the Fiscal Court recently approved a resolution for the Safe Streets for All
That's right.
grant that we've been working on for KIPTA for the past two and a half years. So it's a consideration I think we have to take into account.
And I can tell you, landscaping, having kids, my youngest is 11. Just simple landscaping is not uninviting. You can run through bushes, you can run through mulch. However, a fence, a four-board fence, and I'm saying four-board because it's aesthetically pleasing, is a deterrent. A fence says, don't come in here, right? Don't come in. And likewise, saying about the driveway there at the schools, kids aren't going to walk to the driveway to come across the street to the driveway. Kids are going to run across the landscape, and it doesn't matter if there's a ditch or anything there. So I'm going to stand with I'd like to see it as a binding element.
Okay, Mr. Woosley.
Thank you, Judge. I have a couple of questions for our county engineer. I have a couple of questions for Mr. McIntyre, but my first question is going to be for Magistrate Hawkins.
Yes, sir.
Unless you're planning on putting barbed wire fence around a four-board fence, it's not going to slow down teenagers from coming onto the property. So if your only intention is to create a fence for a deterrent, I'm not sure that's going to help your purpose.
Electricity.
Electricity. So I would need some more information before I could approve that. So, Mr. Silliman, in the report, it talks about a road study from 2003. Has there been anything done since then? Traffic count study?
Well, there was and that's another of the items that kind of changed with the iterations of the plans that they mentioned over time. And when the original plan was being discussed, I was in coordination with the cabinet, transportation cabinet, because the development that we were looking, or that they were looking at, and we were looking at, would generate more than 100 peak hour trips, and that's a important number because when there are greater than 100 peak hour trips generated on a road that has this volume, the transportation cabinet requires a traffic impact study, and so does the Oldham County subdivision regulations. Over time, as they went through these iterations and the use changed and reduced, those trips dropped below the 100 peak hour trips. So the transportation cabinet no longer required that traffic impact study. Oldham County subdivision regulations, however, require when there's greater than 20 peak hour trips, we require what's called a traffic assessment. And it's basically an abbreviated traffic impact study. It's not nearly as thorough, but it is a presentation of that information. So that was ultimately what was provided, was a traffic assessment. While I was reviewing that, I'll say I was challenged with trying to determine what these actual uses were. And so cross-referencing what the Institute of Transportation Engineers, the ITE, provides for these trip generations, and trying to determine what this, if it was truly less than 100. And we determined basically that it was. So when you look at the numbers theoretically, this did not require the roadway improvements based on that traffic assessment.
Okay, thank you.
That was a long way of saying yes.
The speed limit in front of 393 in front of this property, is it 45 or 35?
Oh, I don't remember that study.
I thought it was 35, but
Okay.
It is 35. I should know. I go through there every day.
Okay.
It's 25 during school or during school.
15, yeah. Okay, thank you. Mr. McIntyre.
25.
Yes, sir.
Several questions. One of them, there was a fire hydrant mentioned. Is that your plan to install a fire hydrant along the property?
I do believe that gets into some further detailed design. I wish I had the engineer here. I'm not exactly sure if there's one required.
Okay. I know
The
LaGrange
answer would be
Fire had
yes.
discussed that.
Interestingly enough, there are a number of fire hydrants that serve just Clayton and Lambert on the backside of our property, which we are relocating. So it might be part of that whole overall plan over there to make sure that it's all serviced.
Okay. The drive-through that you're having.
Yes.
I noticed there's only about 6 car spots to line up there. Is there any concern that traffic would back out onto 393 at any point?
Again, human nature is hard to determine. Probably depends on, again, hours of operation, what are the offerings here. And the 6 cars you see is really just a generic block in there to show turning radius. You could probably tighten that up a little bit. But what happens in a parking setup like this is they actually then back up farther down the parking, but during peak hours of when people like to get coffee, let's say it's just coffee, although there's other things, it's in the morning. The FEC is not open at that time, so the parking lot isn't even really being used. So there's actually quite a lot of queuing at that moment. So, but like earlier said, I think there's going to be peak times and then non-peak times.
Okay. You interestingly just said, among other things, when you said coffee, which was my next question.
Yes.
When you do get your liquor license, are you going to sell alcohol through your drive-through?
No, not through the drive-through.
Okay.
No.
Will that need to
No,
be
that would
put
be
in?
that would be a packaged liquor license at that point. We have no intention of being a packaged
Okay.
liquor. You can go to the gas station and do that.
Okay.
This would only be poured in glass, handed by a professional server.
Not out the drive-through?
Not at the drive-through.
Alcohol going to be allowed off the property at all?
Not at all.
Out of the building?
There is, so if you notice, there is a games yard in the middle. That is fenced and controlled. So just like the rules and regulations surrounding handing somebody a drink and then containing them within an area with the right barriers and signage, that's what we intended there in the center.
Okay.
So again, Mike mentioned a couple of facilities that are in Jefferson County. You all have probably seen them. There's a few game yard type places that have popped up. Similar to that in operation.
I also read in the report, and there are some uncapped water wells that back up to the back of the property near where you're going to put the playground. What do you have in store to protect your...
So there is a fence along the whole back side to screen us from Clayton and Lambert and also from those wells.
What type of fencing?
So we haven't determined the exact type, but it goes, for those of you that don't know and you're looking at the plan here, there is a little bit of a strange cutout in the middle. So Clayton and Lambert at one time maintained a water tower for their operation. So they've owned this ground for 150, 180 years or whatever it is. They've never developed on this piece. But that was the connection right there, and there was a water tower, so the old foundations are right there, plus these wellheads. So that was always going to be fenced off with something that was, again, non-climbable, can't scale over the top of it, probably a 6-foot fence at least, that's solid, to make sure that we don't even come into contact with that at all.
Those are just basically manhole covers, right?
Correct, just like you'd see to cover up any utility.
Any plan to work with Clayton and Lambert to secure those so they can't be opened up by?
It's not on my property.
Are you going to
However, I
discuss
can
it with
ask them. We are very good friends with them. I don't know if he's here or not. He's been a big supporter of this, would love to see this go in, so I would love to have that conversation with them.
I would just have a concern that at some point a kid could get over there and open up one of those wells and fall
Noted,
into
as would we.
Okay. What's your time frame for construction?
What's my time
If it's
frame for
approved?
approval?
If it's approved. If it is approved.
And I don't mean that flippantly. I would have loved to have had this up. My biggest regret is that my kids have actually graduated from OC. They would have loved to have had this here. I would have had them working here. So again, that's the other thing I don't want to discount here is that there is a lot of job creation here for people that need jobs within walking distance. I mean, ask any high school kid, and the biggest deterrent for most of the high school kids, my kids' friends, is there's not a place that they can just walk to if they don't have a car. This would be an excellent opportunity to actually learn some job skills right here. So I would have had every one of my kids right there as well.
So what is your time frame for construction?
If
it's approved today?
It would be as soon as we can get plans together. Again, there's a whole process of going through construction documents, financing, and all of that. So I would love to say we would start within a year. I think that'd be reasonable, but it could be a little farther out depending on financing. As you well know, interest rates are stubbornly high still.
I guess my concern there is you've got students, and it's just going to be a distraction in the daytime to hear construction going on right across the street. So it is what it is. And then finally, what are your planned hours?
Anybody that builds here will have the same issue, I suppose.
But not everybody's building right across from one of our premier high schools. So.
Well, anybody that buys this ground would be building something on here that would have construction noise, just like the animal shelter that's right across the street, or Dr. Aaron's, I would say, as well.
All right, what is your hour of operations going to be?
Hours of operations have not been set just yet, but again, probably the drive-through would be early morning, and it would run probably no later than, I would say, 10 at night. The nice thing is about like the pickleball is parents with kids tend to bleed out early evenings, but the sports folks do like to stay a little bit, so they'd probably have a little bit later hours. But again, it's a smaller crowd at that point.
Thank you, Judge.
Manager Tice.
Yes, there was impervious surface.
Yes.
And it's only 5%. Tell me about it.
As far as the waiver that we're asking for?
Right, you're asking for a waiver, so you're 5% of making...
There was a delta of only 5% needed, yes.
Right. Okay.
So what we did in this case is, you can see, which we talked about a little bit already, is we have an underground system that's proposed. Those are great systems. We've put them in a number of developments. They are a lot more expensive to put in, but it did allow us to meet the amount of footprint that we felt we needed to make the buildings financially feasible. So part of that is a game of going, how much building do we need, program do we need, dollars per square footage, per how much we have left over to build on. So there's always this push and pull of, here's the ground that you have and here's the footprint that you can build on it. So the impervious cover was one that came up. We got very close to it, but there was a 5% delta.
Okay. I called Ryan, and let me direct this one to you, Ryan, about the wells or the lids that now, you all cut that out of your piece of property.
It was not available for sale.
And that's what I read here.
Yes.
But in one of the drawings, your line goes straight across. Is that just the fence and not the property line? Because the property line is revisited here. To where
No, the property we bought always had that gap tooth there.
And when I talked to you, I think you remember, Ryan, that I said, I want to know something about that. How is it open? What's the dangerous part of that still in existence? Having grown up and all around here for all of my many years, that now that we're going to be bringing a lot of youngsters and people, the activity there is going to be humongous, especially with, as we've already said, people that don't obey signs, they cut across roads, they'll cut across backyards. Is there any restrictive things in our planning and zoning that will keep that so that nothing happens?
So I believe that's the question that Magistrate Woosley just asked about that. And it is obvious it's not on the applicant's property. And we have nothing in our zoning that would require us to go onto their property to tell them to do anything on that. So I think that answers the question about the fence and the manhole cover to prevent anybody from getting in there.
And and that's what I was afraid the answer was going to be. That's kind of cutting that out. You can't use it anyway, so the buck passes down the road. In our planning and zoning, it says right now this is zoned I-2 and has no plans on changing. It's there and it has been for a long time. What's the setbacks on I-2 versus, what's the setbacks on 393?
Hold on just a
On
second.
I-2.
Let me get the plan.
Got it. And probably the developer is going to be able to tell me what's your setback on your property on 393.
And if I could, are you wondering why we're actually even asking for the zoning change versus keeping it just I-2 and doing what we would want to do under that zoning?
No.
Part of it, okay. I was going to say, because that came
But
up in,
that's the point.
that came up in planning and zoning, and that was one of the reasons why we decided we had to go for the rezoning. We tried to do it within the current zoning.
And why could-
Setbacks was one of the issues that prevented us from doing, at least fitting all the program on.
Got it.
Yeah, so, and this may be what he was going to allude to. So, and this is I-1, hold on. In I-2 zoning, the front yard setback is 100 feet for structures. So I remember this conversation now. It's all coming back to me from 2023, but the reason why they couldn't stay I-2 is definitely the structure distance to their front setback.
I would have loved to have kept it in the zoning. We'd probably have an open facility now.
And where I'm leading to with this question is we're, in our books it's I-2, but more in just thinking about it. If you do spot zoning and move it one lot at a time down the road, then you, as an owner, avoid, the overall property owner, avoid having to have more setbacks, so therefore, in the long run, you're selling more property. And where I'm going is by allowing piece zoning, rather than asking for an overall zoning change, because apparently the intended uses are going to fit into C3 or thereabouts, because the 5 pieces of property down 393 are all C3 or something like that. We got a car dealership, we had a car wash, we got the optometrist, you got your recreational place. So what's happening is we need, in my view, we need an overall plan for this whole piece of property, saying what the go on and ask for your zoning change and have an tentative plan of what you're going to be doing for the next several years.
Point of order, Magistrate, and understanding your point.
Yes, I
but your
understand.
point applies to Clayton and Lambert, correct? You're referencing Clayton and Lambert.
I'm referencing the whole, yes.
Okay,
whole street.
well, Clayton and Lambert doesn't own this particular piece of property at this point. I understand your concern, but your concern, unfortunately, would have related before they sold the property. But they've now sold the property, and you've got an applicant coming before you who owns, what is it, 2 acres? 2.23. 2.23 acres.
And I got you 100%. But we, as Oldham County, continue to allow this procedure to continue, then we're not doing the right thing in planning and zoning. And that's all I'm getting at, and you know where I'm going, so I'm fine with that. Then we have the opportunity to direct where we think that this area of Oldham County needs to go. And our control is that our book says it's I-2, and there's no need to change it. What the county deserves is an overall, and I'm directing this to you, and you can take this back, okay, so I can keep it in where I'm maybe supposed to be. We need a development plan for that. That's where I'm going with that issue right now.
He doesn't.
Now, the second one is what I'm also seeing. I've also seen 5 parcels of property coming down along 393. In a lot of communities where you're concerned with traffic and street lights and all of this, they put an access road, or help me with the correct word because I'm not an engineer, Jim, help me. It's an interior. You find it at Bowling Green, right where you get off the interstate. You turn in and you run that down the parallel 4-lane road to get to your restaurants so that you only go back out on the road at one place. We have it in LaGrange out there on 53 where you've got the bank, Farm Bureau, did I get it right, Jeffries? Mm-hmm. And we've got 4 places tied into 2. And there's an opportunity to put that kind of road in, but what you've got to do is something different. Just from my statement, as I'm looking at this, and I'm really concerned, we know there's an issue, it's not your all's problem, we know there's an issue with water, but we haven't solved it, just kicked it down the road with everything else. I'll vote against this just for the reason, not against you, but just for what I think are good logical reasons that I've just said.
Measure die.
First question I have is for Mr. Baxter. This has been through planning and zoning. I believe it said it was approved at 13-0, wasn't it? Yes. This subject about fences and kids running across the street and all that, I remember us having this a long, drawn-out discussion over the, I think it was the orthodontist's office. And, some magistrates wanted to basically, as Mr. Woosley so artfully put, wanted to put up a 10-foot chain link fence with concertina wire on top of it to keep them from crossing the street. We've talked about the situations of the kids coming from the school, running down Jones Drive and down the hill past the recycling center. And then there was a situation where the kids weren't doing something a certain way, and the school banned their cars off the parking lot. So those are just a few examples. Now, I was a kid once, believe it or not. And this place seems to be something that, kids don't have anything to do. They don't have a bowling alley. They don't have a movie, a theater. They got a drive-in. But this is something for parents and kids can go to. I mean, all the McDonald's are taking out all their little playgrounds because of the liability situation. But going back to the planning and zoning, are we even supposed to be getting into correcting what we feel like is a shortcoming from the technical review and the Planning and Zoning Commission? Aren't we just here to talk about approving a zoning change? All this other stuff has been agreed to by other people. I don't know why. Where are we allowed to come in and say, hey, Planning and Zoning Commission, you're wrong?
Well, my opinion is that your all's purview is whether or not to grant the zone change, whether or not the zoning map is going to be amended. Now, certainly you can attempt to add binding elements. At this stage, a binding element has to be agreed to by the applicant. So it's not a situation where you can come in and say, we want you to move your building closer to the road. We want you to turn your building 90 degrees. But you've got an approved development plan, and respectfully, I mean, the reason you have a planning commission is because that's their job. So from the perspective of minor things that the applicant might agree to, I think that you can do that, but I do not think you're in a position to make wholesale changes to what has been approved by way of a development plan, because the question before you is whether or not to approve the zoning map amendment. Can I answer your
Okay.
question?
That answers my question.
Measure Jeffries.
Yeah, just a couple things. I guess, Mr. Baxter, I would ask that on the proposed, what Magistrate Stephanie Hawkins moved with is, or asked, is the two binding elements. I think the second one they agreed to, said it would be a problem. The first one, I don't think they agreed to. So would we not need an amendment to the original motion to add the request for those, and then we need to vote on those amendments, and but they, as you pointed out, they didn't agree to the first one, and so I think that we need to get that lined out for sure. And then, Magistrate Tice, I think you're concerned about the zoning there. I think, my understanding is Clayton Lambert has no plans or, to do anything with their buildings, which would, preclude them requesting, additional zoning changes or whatever. But I don't think that's really relevant to this discussion today. But that's just, that's my thoughts on it. But I think we need to have, some amendments if we want to consider those proposed, adding those binding elements to this discussion.
Well, I think 2 points very quickly, and 2 points. One is the one they agreed to. It could either be added to the original motion since they've agreed to it, but the one they haven't agreed to, that's something for you all to consider as. I think they have to agree to the additional binding elements. If they do not agree to them, that just is something that factors into your decision making.
Right.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Who you mean by they?
The applicant.
Right, okay.
So the binding element, they agreed to the no alcohol signage, and so that needs to be added to the motion as an additional binding element, which is not an issue, is it, Mr. Swansburg?
In terms of the signage?
Yes.
No.
But the one that they could not agree to, because they can't figure out whether or not they can agree to it, as we sit here today, had to do with some fencing, I think.
Floorboard fence, yeah.
Yep.
Right, okay. All right.
May I?
I'd like to ask you some questions here. Earlier, you made quite an effort to talk about alcohol here, okay? You mentioned 3 locations within the nearby area that sell alcohol, okay? None of those locations actually have on-site beverage consumption. They're all cash or they're all carry-out stores, package stores. You don't drink it there. You get it there, leave the premises. I'd like to ask Mr. McIntyre, the way I looked at the map here, and perhaps I read it wrong, my eyes aren't great, it appeared to me that you had the restaurant right next to the playground. Is that correct?
Yes, it is bookending it.
All right, so you intend to serve alcohol in the restaurant right next to the playground?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I do believe one of you said that after somebody played pickleball, they may want to have a drink.
Correct.
Is there any reason why the alcohol is not located near the athletic facilities, but is located near the playground?
Well, it actually potentially could be in both.
Could be in both.
And remember, hours of operation are probably going to dictate when and where people want to, consume food or beverages.
Okay, I believe I understood that people would be able to buy a drink and take it portable. They're not going to necessarily consume it at their seat. They can wander the entire property. Is that correct?
Within the confines of the property beyond the parking, yes.
Okay. Do you think you can be successful in this venture without the sale of alcohol?
It is a factor. Anytime you have food and beverage, beverages are generally a significant part of the finances. Fortunately, we are entertainment forward, so we have other avenues of revenue. At this point, though, I don't want to discount it as an option available to us. We still have to apply for the license, and nothing is foregone about that. But we would like to have that opportunity. it is something that I know a lot of folks do like to do, not everyone, and it'd be a personal choice at that point.
Right, I believe a reference was made to like Applebee's, okay?
Correct.
Applebee's is a restaurant that does have a bar, I believe, more or
Does.
less in the beginning. I think you can sit at the bar and eat, but the purpose of the bar is really to, have a beer or something like
Yes.
that. Okay, so what you're offering here is very, very much needed in Oldham County. It's been discussed by, I believe, most of us, or maybe everybody on this fiscal court. John Black and I have wrung our heads on this subject for 10 years or longer. We're disappointed when our movie theater left. We've asked, why can't someone build a bowling alley here? I think you said it was $1 million a lane.
$1 million for 10 lanes.
For
It's about 100,000 a lane.
$100,000 a lane, okay. Very expensive. We definitely need things for young people to do here, families to do here. This is a much needed idea. You're complicating it here in my mind a little bit by putting in a traffic location that, in my mind, I see tons of cars in the afternoon lined up, particularly in the afternoon leaving Oldham County High School. I don't know how people are going to come out of here in the afternoon and turn left when there's a string of cars 30 deep going down the street. I think Mr. Solomon has spoken a little bit to that. That's one issue. And that maybe it's overcome. And in the morning, I guess you bring your child to school and you get a cup of coffee on the way home or something like that.
I've done that circuit for many years.
Yeah,
I
right.
had triplets, ran them all through here.
Right, I did too.
Yeah.
Drove, and the parents take their kids. They don't use the bus as often as they could. The other item you have here is kids crossing the street. Okay, I think the signage thing is not important in my mind, as far as I don't think you want any sign that says Schlitz, in the window on your building. But you're serving alcohol in there. We just right now have had the 2 violations in the last couple of weeks that we've had local package stores selling to underage kids. We try to enforce the law. The state tries to enforce the law. Are we hypocrites about this? Because we try not to introduce kids to something that could potentially be negative and hurt them. So I'm trying to ascertain if you can do this without alcohol. I know you wouldn't want to, but could you? I'm saying this is very much needed here. But I'm kind of on the horns of a dilemma here because you're right across from a school. You're going to have, I don't think the alcohol is going to be confined to restaurant tables. It's going to wander around. Doesn't stop somebody from getting a drink, walking it out, and giving it to a kid around the corner, as far as I know, or somewhere else on the property. And you talked about the state approval. The state will not approve alcoholic beverage license without local agreement. And, this is an issue. Would we agree to this? There's going to be an uproar of parents and others if we agree to let you sell alcohol in this facility.
Can I ask, there was a 4th facility, which wasn't on the map. There was a Puerto Rican place that also was within that map. Were there problems with that facility? I understand it's closed. Were there problems with that being a per serve location, or are we talking about there's been problems with package sales? Package sales is one of those things that's always, again, with the false IDs and all of that. Again, this is a little bit of a different operation. Again, this thinking of, like your example about the Applebee's. This is where there's a trained staff member to do that, handing it to somebody.
It wasn't
Right.
across the street from a
Were there any issues, though, with
No, I don't think there were.
Okay.
It's just that I have, we have had these package stores near. We have a problem here that all of our commercial districts are really on top of a number of schools and vice versa. Not planned, but that's just the way things have worked out here.
Some of the available ground now, too.
Pardon?
It is now some of the available ground. to
Right,
develop.
Right.
yes.
So we have it down in Crestwoods, not far, across the street, some of these places. I've heard it from parents that didn't like Victory Liquors being approved and others, that, it's just an issue. So that's why I'm asking you if you can make it without alcohol. No, you don't want to, but, it's just a problem.
Yes, it's a question. I will go on record saying that we would like to have alcohol sales here at some point in the future. Yes.
Okay. Magistrate Hawkins.
I'd like to, for Holly's benefit, word the binding element that the applicant agreed to, and it sounds like this: should ABC license be issued, there shall be no alcohol advertising visible from exterior of the building. And then to address Magistrate Woosley's question, another, I guess it would be an additional binding element would be no packaged liquor sales on the property.
That's going to be.
Well, they're not going, he has to have a package license to have a pack. He can't,
Can't do.
you can't get that.
The package part about the sales, like as in a liquor
Yeah,
store.
he can't do that, which
Yes,
is,
you
this
have
is
to
a beverage on
Okay.
serving, not
So I'll
sale.
remain with the initial, should ABC license be issued, there shall be no alcohol advertising visible from the exterior of the building.
That's agreeable.
I'm going to ask you another question along the same line.
Yes.
One you probably aren't going to want to hear, but if you get this, if your alcohol license is denied by Oldham County, are you still going to build this facility?
We intend to. Yes, like I said, this is now not alcohol forward, as Mike has made in his presentation. So the financial success is on the programming that's happening here. We would like that as an option, though. We were hoping we would get that license. Making the numbers, you brought up a point, why do these things not exist out here? These things are tough to do. They're a risk. I mean, these are millions of dollars to put these things together. So you have to put a pro forma together that is robust enough and actually is fluid enough to be able to meet the whims of the folks that live here. And it's a gamble. So we fully intend to build this one way or the other in terms of the food and beverage sales, of how that goes. But I mean, ultimately, it would be the consumer that decides, what is asked of in this. So we would like to have that choice to be able to be a very robust and successful member of the community, creating jobs and all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't want to limit people's choices here. So yes.
We have a motion on the floor to approve this zoning map amendment change. Magistrate Dye, would you like to restate your motion in relation to the requirements that we have to approve the motion?
No, Judge, I'd like to withdraw my motion. I don't agree with either one of those.
No, wait, you don't want to do that?
Judge?
Wait a minute. No, I'm going to ask you if you accept the amendments to your motion later. But first, you need to restate your motion, then we'll decide if we're going to add the amendments.
You're not there yet.
All right, I got
Do you need the KOC?
No,
Pardon?
I got this.
Yeah.
Okay, if I can get it big enough for me to see. Ordinance number KOC 25920-081, related to a change in the Oldham County zoning map that rezones a 2.23 acre tract of land adjacent to 1201 North Highway 393, Buckner, Kentucky, in parentheses, partial ID 30-00-00-19M, from the existing I-2 Heavy Industrial District to C3 General Business District zoning classification.
Because it. Do you want me to help him add a because it adds
You gotta have some why.
I know I'll look for the Ys and.
It's.
He's fleshing out his motion.
Wait a minute, hold on. Oh, here it is. I couldn't find that in here, but I remember reading it there. Okay, according to the land use objective, LU-1-1, encouraging compatibility with surrounding land uses and government services, and land use objective LU-1-3, parentheses 1, related to development in areas with existing infrastructure and services, and business and industrial objective BI-1-2, parentheses 1, encouraging the highest and best use of the existing industrial and commercial land through flexible land development regulations.
Then I still second the motion.
All right, now, Manager Dye, do you accept the two suggested amendments? My
was for
voice
the,
is giving out on me. Excuse me.
Your voice is going like mine.
No alcohol signage and putting the fence on the property.
Neither one.
Okay.
The alcohol signage.
All right, so
I don't need that. That's ABC takes care of that.
I think we can go forward then with those two items rejected. We've got a motion on the floor to approve this, and
Judge, you don't know if you can put a fence on
another
there.
point, say Barry.
Well, I guess where I'm confused, Magistrate Dye, is the applicant agreed to the first binding element, which was that there would not be any exterior alcohol signage on the property.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying you reject the applicant's...
I don't even think he should be subjected to it. He's going to build a nice building over there. He's not going to put Miller Beer neon sign on the front of that building.
What about the next?
You know, we have buildings, we have people all over the county that are illegally or improperly putting signs out. I don't think this is going to be a problem. I mean, I still hold to the premise that the what planning and zoning is doing is their job. I don't think we need to be dipping into their job. Now, if this is going to further that one along, okay, then I will agree to the binding element about the outdoor signage, okay?
Well, you don't have to convince
No,
me.
I
I just want to be clear. I
know,
don't get
but-
both, man. I'm just a lawyer.
If you,
I
I will agree to the binding element if you will agree to the binding element of the alcohol signage.
All right,
only.
I'll agree to that.
I'm not sure we need it. Mr. McIntyre has stated his word here. It's a public record. I don't think, I personally don't think we need it. He said he wouldn't, and that's good enough for me. You
But
know?
it's in. He said he would add it, and Chris said he would,
Just the alcohol.
Okay.
just the alcohol part.
All right.
And I'm like you, Judge, I don't see
Well,
it.
and I don't agree with the point that we can't override the planning commission on anything they put in there, but that's another discussion
Well, we
for
agree on
another
one
day.
thing and not on the other.
Judge,
That kind of time.
Okay, we've got a motion on the
Oh,
second on the
Judge, I
floor
have
here. I'm going to ask,
question.
but pardon, go ahead, you want to say something?
Yes, I do. I want to clear up this so it doesn't get messed up when this thing goes. We're not doing anything about a fence, correct?
Correct.
Just want to make sure because that was part of that was part of it. So
Correct.
we have to separate these two out.
did.
He didn't
We
accept, the
did.
Okay, I
motion
just wanna
maker
make
didn't.
sure.
First one.
I'm just
Motion
making
maker
sure.
didn't accept either suggestion for a binding element. So, okay, I think the point was made with this, if this goes forward, it needs to be safe for kids. Superintendent Hazelton made that point, and I think we all agree with it. And I know Mr. McIntyre and his attorney also agree with that. I mean, no one wants their kid hurt running across the street there. There's the phrase.
So, Judge, just to reiterate, we're only going with one, and that's the alcohol. The fence is out.
Right.
Okay.
The only thing that I wanted to say is on planning and zoning, when they had their vote, it wasn't a slam dunk 13-0. It was an 8-5.
was it?
The only vote that was 13-0 was the last one on one little variance.
No, it was the development plan was 13-0 to
Yeah.
approve the development plan.
Yes, but that was all after the zoning change.
Well, right, the
So in
zoning
other words,
change
there was
recommendation.
okay if the zoning's changed, then they were okay with that.
Right.
Right.
But that's got nothing to do with it. That was the issues were all on the other because they were concerned about stuff. But I do want to say one other thing, and I recognize that the attorney is correct. But as we discuss this, we're talking about somebody else is not here that we can put that stipulation on because these gentlemen don't own the property. Well, guess what? We're getting ready to do something or not do. If we do it, let me phrase it that way. If we do something, we don't have any commitment on a fence. It's just hearsay.
We didn't.
No, we don't, we're not going to do a fence.
No, I'm talking about the fence around the hole in the ground.
But that's not on, that's not
That's
on this.
on-
That's what I'm saying.
But you can't, we're here to talk about this zoning change.
I'm out. I'm out. I'm okay. But
Judge, are we including the four
not-
original binding elements that
Not to
planning and zoning
interject
put on?
myself into the record.
Yes, sir.
But the applicant did state that there will be fencing between between his property and the Clayton and Lambert property all the way around the backside of the property.
That is correct. I just don't have control over just the end that faces Clayton and Lambert. I can't ask them to then close in that end.
But you're gonna do that.
On our end, we are going to do everything that we can to keep people away from something that could potentially be a problem. We addressed that very early on in our plans. Yes.
And I have no problem with your presentation.
Okay, I think,
There are four other binding
well,
elements. that
yeah, the
planning-
binding elements that came with the request for the zoning map amendment change, they stay with the, stay with the request. Plus what has been added in here regarding alcohol signage and what is stated, I guess, about the fence in the back. Holly has a question.
I just wanted to get clarification because I don't know what's up on the screen, how it had the LU, the ones that he specifically referenced, because I don't know if it's going to be recorded on the screen. Is it possible for this to be emailed to me so that I can have that to reference in the minutes for the motion?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get that at the end.
All right, I think we've got a motion on the floor, second. I think we're pretty clear on what we're doing here, I hope. All right, please call the roll.
All right, Magistrate Hawkins,
Aye.
Magistrate Logsden,
Yes.
Magistrate Jeffries,
Yes.
Magistrate Tice,
No.
Magistrate Likens,
No.
Magistrate Woosley,
Yes.
Magistrate Hounds,
Yes.
and Judge Vogel.
I'm going to vote yes on this.
She forgot me.
I'm sincere in saying
Forgot
what
one.
your, pardon?
Forgot Magistrate Die. Numbers don't. add up.
Imagine who?
Gosh, you know, we got down
I
here.
apologize,
Magistrate
Magistrate
Dye,
Dye.
okay.
I don't care about your vote.
Didn't make you mad, did I, Holly?
Didn't need it today.
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes on this because this is a needed project, and I appreciate your willingness to risk your money to bring this project and your friends to bring it here for our kids and families. It's needed, okay? The alcohol issue, we'll have to talk about later because honestly, the alcohol issue falls right on my head as ABC administrator here. So we'll have to talk about it further. I'm a little skittish about it. I don't know, maybe you can, but we just want a good time, safety for everybody.
We're going to be a great operator.
Yeah, and I hope so. And I'm sorry you had to crawl over broken glass to get to this point here, but here you made it. So, all right, motion carries. How many?
7-2.
7-2. Thank you. All right, let's take a 10-minute adjournment here. Come back at 4:20. We've got the 25, 26, maybe we're just on now. I'm not sure if we were on before or not, but welcome back to any viewers. We just voted to go back into session. Here's Jim Sullivan now to talk about our rural KYTC Rural Secondary Flex Funds resolution. Jim, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So what we have is Resolution 01-03-04-25. And this is the 25-26 Rural Secondary Flex Funds. Flex Funds are annually coordinated with the county and KYTC, where they offer to either let the county utilize those funds on their roads, and this is for paving, asphalt paving, or if the county elects, let the state utilize those funds on their rural secondary routes. And historically, I say historically, over the past 5 or 6 years, Fiscal Court has elected to let the state utilize those on their rural secondary roads because they do need that work. So what we need to do is give them this approval so they can further work on their budget. Right now, they've provided an amount of $136,776 for this work. That's a preliminary number. It could change some. And at this time, they've stated a couple locations where they would potentially do this work on, Old Sligo and Peyton Lane, but that's not certain yet either. Again, this is to, if Fiscal Court approves, this is to let them move forward with their budgeting. So again, what I'm asking is for Fiscal Court to approve the resolution to let the KYTC utilize these flex funds on their rural secondary roads. And
Okay.
Mr. Jeffries, you're probably going to say that this did go through Road Committee with approval at their February 4th, 2025 meeting.
Judge, I would like to move that we allow you to sign the resolution number 01030425 to designate the usage of the flex funding for the 25-26 rural secondary program provided by Kentucky Transportation Cabinet.
Second.
Road maintenance in Oldham County.
Second.
All right, any discussion on this? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I think this does require a roll call
Yes,
vote.
it does, actually. I just realized
Sorry.
that. We need a roll call on this.
And the clerk will need to indicate who voted in favor, I think, on the bottom of the form, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Magistrate Dye,
Yes.
Magistrate Hawkins,
Yes.
Magistrate Tice,
Yes.
Magistrate Likens,
Yes.
Magistrate Hounds,
Yes.
Magistrate Jeffries,
Yes.
Magistrate Woosley,
Yes.
Magistrate Logsdon,
Yes.
and Judge.
Yes. All right, that was pretty easy.
Who made that motion?
All right, motion passes.
I did.
Kevin.
Next item, surface water quality monitoring contract. Jim Sullivan.
Yes, so as part of our MS4 permit, and that's the municipal separate storm sewer permit with the Division of Water, we have gone to several watersheds, separate watersheds, and had surface water testing. This is the minimum control measure 3 of that permit. About 5 years ago, we had our consultant test the waters and give us results for the Curry's Fork watershed, and then he moved on to Floyd's Fork and Harrods Creek and other watersheds. Well, we're back around with the new permit, and we'd like to get started on Curry's Fork again to do a second round of testing. So at your, I believe it was also the February 4th, 2025 fiscal court meeting, we opened bids for this work. Atlas was the low bidder, and they were approved. However, we didn't have a contract at the time, so what I'm asking is that fiscal court allow Judge Executive Vogel to sign the contract with Atlas for this work in the amount of, I've got it here somewhere. Well, I apologize, I don't have the attachment. I believe it was $15,000 and some, but the amount was approved. We just need the contract signed, and Mr. Baxter, county attorney, did review this.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Can we make sure that The minutes reflect, Jim, when you find that number, that exact number, that you send those to Holly.
I can give that
And
to
you-
Holly, yes.
And you believe it's in the $15,000 range?
I believe that's correct. I just didn't print that attachment to this contract.
I was going to ask that, and also, is there any opportunity for a grant to help pay for this?
So typically, this has been considered one of the match portions
Okay.
because we have to do this for our MS4 permit. And what you're referring to is the grant for the Curry's Fork 319H grant, specifically with the Division of Water. So again, it counts towards the match portion of that grant.
Judge, I have a quick question.
Yes,
So
sir.
does that mean that the
We don't
match,
get reimbursed for it.
We won't.
We don't get reimbursed for this, no.
Okay, so what would the match cover?
Well, so as part of the 319H grant, we get a 60% reimbursement from the state. The other 40% is covered by what's called the local match. And some of that is in-kind services or volunteer time. In this case, if there's work done that's not reimbursed, it goes towards that 40%. And
Is-
again, since we have to do this anyway as part of our MS4 permit, it makes sense to count it as that match.
When you say the in-kind, is that the stuff going through the conservation district currently?
Well, I consider it like this, or just any other work, again, that would have to be done or is done anyway, that grant can take credit for.
Who's reporting those hours?
Well, so the Oldham County Soil and Water Conservation District is currently contracted to us to perform the management of that, and I work with them closely. So they report it, I review it, and it gets turned into the Division of Water quarterly.
Okay.
Any other questions? Magistrate Woosley.
Just, I went back and looked at the minutes. The price was $15,100 for Atlas.
Thank you.
Just one quick question. A lot of discussion or whatever, at least on the federal level, about a lot of these type funds being cut, or eliminated or whatever. Have you gotten any word or heard anything about, what could be down the pike as far as these type of grants or these types of funds?
Well, again, this is actually part of a state grant, not federal. I'm sorry, it's not a grant. This is part of a state program,
Right.
not a federal grant.
Right, but
so
they
I'm not-
do get some federal funds, I think, to, that filters down to the state division of water or whatever.
Well, and I guess not to confuse this with the 319H grant,
Right.
which is the state grant. This is actually part of what we're talking about now is part of our state permit.
Right, okay. Yeah, and I hopefully, it won't go away, but I mean, I think there's some discussion, through NRCS and some of the federal programs that the state does take advantage of. So,
I'm not aware of any changes yet to our MS4 permit.
right, okay. That's all, Judge.
All right, thank you. All right, motion on the floor and the second, and approved. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is our Pee Wee Valley litter abatement resolution with Becky Zockline.
Thank you, Judge and members of the Fiscal Court. I'd like to, first of all, make sure that the members of the Fiscal Court are fully aware of how our litter abatement program works. First of all, at the state level, the Division of Waste Management takes into consider all of the road miles in each county in the state. So all 120 counties are eligible for a litter abatement grant if they so choose to apply. And you agreed to apply for this year's grant. It runs on the calendar year last September. So the state takes into account all of Oldham County's road miles and calculates a figure for what it would take to clean those roads. And that amount, the amount of the grant that we received this year was roughly $81,000 and some change, somewhere between $81,000 and $82,000 that we get each year. Now, the cities also have the opportunity to apply for a litter abatement grant for the road miles within their city boundaries. Now, if they should so choose to apply, they would get a portion of that total that was assigned to the county for their particular city to do litter abatement work. How a county chooses to use their litter abatement funds is up to that county. So in our on our county level, as you're fully aware, we typically use a cash for trash type of program, awarding nonprofit groups and volunteer groups to clean our roads. The city of Pewee Valley for this calendar year did not apply, and they missed their deadline. So they are requesting the fiscal court for the portion of that $81 plus $1,000 to be paid to them from our award, and that's what we're asking today. The amount that they would have received had they met their deadline is $1,589.01. So my question to the fiscal court is, will you approve payment of that amount of the litter abatement funds to the city of Pewee Valley?
That's how much again?
$1,589.01.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Judge,
Manager Hawkins?
so,
Let's get a motion on the
You
floor
wanna get a- okay.
before we have a discussion.
okay. I'd like to make the motion that we decline the resolution to provide litter abatement funds to the city of Pewee Valley.
Now second.
Okay. Would you like me to speak now regarding
Yes.
that? Okay. This came through, of course, you all remember this was on the agenda for last month, and we decided to move it to this month where our waste management coordinator could be here. And so this came through committee today, Environmental Recycling, Utilities, and IT Committee. And I'll just give like a brief overview of what we came up with and why we decided to not bring it favorably out of committee. And essentially, the county gets, like Becky said, between $81,000 and $82,000 to clean the roads of the county. We choose to use that money to pay nonprofits to go around the streets of the county, 53, 42, 393, and pay the nonprofits a nice amount, $1,000, $1,500, to clean these streets. We are, in fact, in Pewee Valley, also cleaning Pewee Valley streets. So the fact that they didn't apply for this through the grant and that the county got the money brought up the conversation that this is kind of a philosophical conversation. We're in Pewee Valley cleaning up their streets anyway, all except for one, Maple. But we're in Old Floydsburg, we're on Ash, we're on 146, we're on Holly Gibson, we're on Hounds Lane. We are in there.
It's not in the city of Pewee Valley.
Okay. We are in, so Hounds is not in Pewee Valley. So we are in those, in that city, Pewee Valley, cleaning up their roads with this money. So because of that, we felt like we were handling the cleaning of their streets appropriately and fully to where they wouldn't necessarily need the money to clean their streets because our nonprofits are already doing it. So that's why it didn't come out favorably to approve this out of committee. And the other members are free to.
But you're
speak on
saying
it as well.
state street. You keep saying their streets. You're talking about the state highways, right? 146, 22, 362.
Ash Avenue.
Ash.
We are, right? Are we only cleaning the state streets or are we kind of picking up other streets as well?
In Pewee Valley, we only clean state roads.
Can't hear. We gotta speak up. Please project, everyone.
Okay.
Which part?
All right. You got the question answered?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody knew we were already doing the state. This
Right.
is not Maple in any of the city streets.
Magistrate Tice.
But have we already spent that money?
No,
No.
no, we just got it in January.
So that'll be spent.
Yeah,
through the
very
grant.
little has been spent yet.
Thank you.
Judge.
Magistrate Hounds.
So Becky, I guess where I'm confused is because they didn't apply for it, did the state automatically give it to us? Or are we
Yes.
giving, okay.
Yeah, so
So
the
it-
state, as I said initially, all the roads in the county are taken into account
Okay.
to decide what the total for the county is.
Okay.
When a city applies, that the roads in that city.
Okay, I just was, I'm
are-
making sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So has anybody else done this to us before?
Pee Wee Valley has done it before, LaGrange has done it before.
And what have we done in the past?
We've given them the money.
It's been 2000. When was the last time? 2017?
I believe so, yes.
Question. I have a question then. So, Rebecca, if we do not give Pee Wee Valley this money, you will still find some Cub Scouts, somebody to clean those roads anyway, right?
Those roads are already scheduled to be cleaned.
Okay. So when we give this to them, they would just clean up the city streets then with the money.
They, how they use the money is up to them. They can hire somebody, but I mean, it's less than $1,600, which
But the
is
state roads
yeah.
will be done.
The
anyway.
state roads will be done, yes,
Whether we give them the money or not?
correct.
And Becky already has the trash bags, the people lined up, as she does every year. So they'll get done as they have continued to get done.
Okay. Any other questions here? All right. We've got a motion and a second on the floor to award Pee Wee Valley this money.
No, not to.
The motion was to
Not
decline the
not
resolution,
okay.
Judge.
Not to give it to them?
Right, we're taking care of it anyway. We
Okay.
have the nonprofit scheduled, we have the bags, we
right.
have all the equipment, we have
All
the
right.
education.
I think we better take a voice vote on this.
Would you repeat the motion again, Judge?
The motion is to not award the Pee Wee Valley $1,589
$89.01.
that came to Oldham County Fiscal Court because they had not applied timely for these, this grant for the highway safety money,
For litter abatement,
litter abatement money.
yes.
Was that just an oversight, or they just
It was
ignored
just an
or-
oversight,
I'm
yes.
sorry?
An oversight.
All right, so remember, if you vote yes on this, you're actually saying that you don't want us to give Pee Wee Valley the money. If you vote no, that means that you're not accepting our denial of the money. And then we'll have to turn around and say that somebody will have to make a motion that we give them the money. Okay? Are you clear? Everybody clear on that?
Yes.
Crystal clear.
Huh? Crystal. Yeah, crystal. anyway.
Crystal clear.
All right, we'll call the roll on this just because it could be tricky.
Magistrate Tice,
Yes.
Magistrate Woosley,
No.
Magistrate Hawkins,
Yes.
Magistrate Jeffries,
No.
Magistrate Likens,
Yes.
Magistrate Hounds,
No.
Magistrate Dye,
Yes.
Magistrate Logston,
Yes, because we're already doing their roads.
and Judge. 5-3.
I vote no. Motion passes 5-4.
Thank you, Judge.
I have another question then. Now, since we're going to give them the money.
No,
then-
No, we're not.
giving the money.
Unless
We're
you
not
make a
giving them the
motion.
money.
Okay. All right.
Right. We're cleaning
They're
their,
not getting the money.
Okay. All right. Okay.
They're not, yeah.
okay.
And we're going to have you on the next litter pickup
No, no,
group
no.
out there.
I'm just
I've
ready
done
for
it.
the next question. I'm ready for the next question.
Okay, safety grant,
Okay.
resolution, the filing of an application with Kentucky Office of Safety for the grant.
Okay, there is another question.
Yeah.
Motion passed. We're not going on that one, right?
All right.
That's correct.
So we're done?
We're done.
Now we're at the Kentucky Highway Safety Grant. Chief Smith.
Bob Rogers,
2 hours and 41 minutes later.
You follow that?
Rough crowd, Chief
They don't
Smith.
want to
Good
give
luck to you.
They don't want to give people value to money.
Can I just say this is $30,000 for nothing? To make it easy. This is a resolution we get every year with the Kentucky Highway Department of Safety, and it's for a grant. There's no match to this grant. It's for traffic enforcement. The grant ordinarily will specify a different type of enforcement, like seatbelts and things, but we do the same thing every year. And this year we're asking for $30,000.
Judge, I move that we allow you to sign the ordinance or resolution number 03030425 for us to receive the highway safety grant in the amount of $30,000.
Second.
All right, is there any question on that? I think everybody's in favor of that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you,
We
Chief.
went easy on you today.
Now we're at item H, which is this is an interlocal agreement that we've been asked to sign with other counties in Carroll, Gallatin, Henry, Owen County, and Trimble County. Most of these counties are in agreement with signing this resolution. If the fiscal court declines to sign it, the agreement will go forward, but without that particular county in it. The money is to allow us to put $40,000 into the seed money to begin a drug task force in the north central Kentucky area here, principally along I-71. It's a possibility some other counties outside I-71 may actually join this drug task force, but right now it's these 6 counties that have been asked to participate with the Kentucky State Police. And as you've seen in the agreement here, this agreement is heavily supported by our Commonwealth attorney and the county attorneys in the counties involved here, as well as Attorney General Russell Coleman is strongly behind supporting the creation of this task force. So I'm going to recommend that we be involved in it, and many of these counties are going to use opioid funds, but I think once the thing gets underway, we'll come back and decide if we're going to use funds from our opioid allocation or if we'll use general fund money.
You make the motion, Judge?
Yes, I'm making that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
I'd like to bring up that this was brought through committee today, was voted on 3-0 in the affirmative way. And Mr. Baxter, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I don't think, except to let you all know that once it's signed by the folks that are going to participate, it has to go to the Attorney General for final approval. And then once he signs off on it, it gets recorded with the Secretary of State. So there's more steps. I mean, we got a ways to go before anybody's going to come and ask you for the $40,000.
Right. And I will have to say there was probably 30 or 40 people in the room. Judge executive, sheriffs, some police, state police, some magistrates. And lo and behold, after we were done, they had a small lunch prepared, and we got what we wanted done, and ate lunch, and no one got in a fist fight over what they wanted. Everybody agreed, and so it was a good day. Wouldn't you say, Mr. Jeffries?
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Magistrate Hawkins.
Judge, I had a question for you. Did you get your questions rectified that you had brought to that committee?
Yes, I did. Submitted some questions and the wording in the contract, and all my questions were answered, and some of the wording was accepted.
Okay.
And other things that I had brought up were clarified as not necessary or contradictory to what should be included in there. So.
Right. At that meeting, I just I didn't know if everything was clarified satisfactorily.
Yeah. Thank you. All right.
And we asked the AG for an opinion on these opioid monies, and that was last Monday. I don't think that opinion has been returned yet, but as it's been said, I know he's favorable for the task force, and he's been vocal about that on social media and in various conversations with elected officials. So just wanted to make that known.
Right. The purpose of the thing is to try to eliminate, reduce, eradicate the sales of illegal drugs in these 6 counties and possibly a little bit wider area. And we hope it'll be successful once it gets underway.
Yes, Magistrate Dawkins took my question because I was wondering if we did get the Attorney General opinion on this, whether we can use it or the opioid money for this.
Well, that's why I said that we'll decide later. Right now, we're just committing $40,000, but we don't know if it's opioid money or general fund money.
But once we sign this, we're in it.
We're in for something.
Right.
Right. And there's a 90-day escape clause in here in the future. If we ever decide to withdraw, we can.
Because again, I am for this as long as we can use opioid money to pay for this, but not general fund money.
Right. Well, that'll be a vote that comes up later after the issue of the opioid money is clarified. Or
That's
an
why I was
opinion
hoping we
given.
would get the Attorney
Right.
General opinion before we had to vote on this.
All we're doing today is
I
an
understand.
MOU.
I get what we're doing.
And we're not, the judge is not going to have to stroke a check for $40,000 or the court for $40,000 for probably months.
But as he said, nearly everything nowadays is opioid related.
Let's just stay on topic of the MOU. We'll worry about the 40,000 later.
What we're trying to do is signal. What we're trying to do is say that we'll sign on. Okay. Then how we're going to pay for this later will be determined. But if it's not opioid money, then we'll ask for general fund money. If you don't want to use that money, then you'll have an opportunity to, speak to that issue. Okay. But they're trying to get organized here and count noses as to, who's going to be in this thing. All right, so is there, we've got a motion and second on the floor. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. I think we can drop the next one about the purchase of 2 vehicles for the detention center because I believe that we already approved those.
Yep.
But they were included in the jailer's presentation earlier. Now we're on to committee reports and recommendations, and Jim Silliman is back with talking about a recommendation to reduce a performance bond.
Yeah, so the Royal Oaks subdivision, Phase 1, Section 2, that's a subdivision under development, connects to Hawley Gibson Road near Ash Avenue. When the subdivision began construction, they actually put up a performance surety that was for a large amount of construction, and they've done a lot of the work now and only have a few minor or a few lesser items remaining. So they requested that we release the portion that's been completed. So, and based on our inspection, they have satisfactorily. So I recommend, I'm asking the fiscal court to reduce the bond to the amount of $54,000. It was originally $303,509.35. So we're requesting that it be reduced to $54,000.
Judge, this is in my district, and they have kept that neighborhood very clean and worked with the stormwater issues when they've come up, even on the unfinished part of that neighborhood. So
I think you're right. They've been responsive. When we had some questions or concerns about rock in the road, they addressed it within hours.
Running into Francis Avenue.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make the recommendation that we approve the reduction in the performance road bond, assuming it passed the road committee.
I'll second.
And it did go through.
And this also did come through the road committee with a positive vote, 3-0 to make this recommendation.
Correct.
All right, hearing that recommendation and support, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Jim.
Next, we have the Cherry Grove subdivision, and this one's unique because previously you actually the fiscal court approved the release of the erosion control and performance sureties here. However, the developer contacted me later and because his bank had a second erosion control surety on file. We didn't have all the records on that. I'm not sure why there were two, but there was one in place. So there's no reason for us to have this bond in place. We've released all the others, but it's on their files. So I'm asking that the Cherry Grove subdivision remaining bond or surety, which is a letter of credit in the amount of $11,200, be released.
So moved.
I'll second that. There again, this one came through Road Committee with a positive recommendation to accept the amount to be released.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Lastly for me, I have a M&H Oldham County Properties, which is a development on Spencer Court in LaGrange. They've completed their construction in accordance with our subdivision regulations and their approved plans, and I'm requesting that Oldham County Fiscal Court release their letter of credit in the amount of $10,400.
Judge, I'll move that we release the letter of credit in the amount of $10,400 for M&H Oldham County Property, the erosion control surety, and it again came through Road Committee with a positive recommendation to release.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
One opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We added one item to the committee reports and recommendations that had to be from the Building Committee, Magistrate Likens.
Thank you, Judge. Building and Maintenance Committee had a positive recommendation that we accept the bid of Roof Masters for a new 24-gauge standing seam metal roof for $107,821.87. That also includes removing the 2 brick chimneys on the building next to us, which is the old Fiscal Court building. So I'll make a motion we accept a bid of Roof Masters for $107,821.87.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor or discussion, Magistrate Logston?
I'm all in favor of putting this metal roof on. What kind of safety things do we have? There's a video out there where some guy was walking down the sidewalk and all the snow just slid off and barely missed him. So I'm sure on this metal roof it's going to be slick too. So what safety precautions are we going to have on that roof to keep that from happening?
I think we're putting snow guards on there. Rodney's not here to verify that, but we did bring that up, and I remember him saying we were putting the snow guards on that new metal
thank you.
roof.
All right. Any other questions? Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Now on to personnel items. Mrs. Schaaf? Yeah, I almost said magistrate, right? Yeah, you'll take that, won't you?
All right. Before you all this afternoon, we have some new hires at the Parks Department, 2 building monitors, Caitlin Comer and Aubrey Brown at $10 an hour effective tomorrow. Do you want me to go through all these, Judge, or how do you want to do them?
All right, well, let's all, got a motion here and to hire this
So moved.
Caitlin. All in
Second.
favor?
Second.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We have another resignation here, but.
We have a resignation, yes, from the Police Department, Morgan Bennett, effective today.
All right, we don't need to vote on these, we just announced them. Go
Right, and
ahead.
a resignation at the Animal Control, Jared Banta, and that was effective on the 27th of February. And then we do need to take a vote on the termination for Kenny Randolph, effective 2/26.
Okay. All right, we thank those employees for, they resigned for working with us, and we'll accept a motion for Kenny Randall's termination.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries, all right, thank you.
Oh, and then the last item is Judge Executive's Office. We have a rate increase for the Deputy Judge Executive, Joe Ender. The new rate is $71.79 an hour, effective to today.
All right.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion here? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 You want to put?
No.
Motion carries 7-2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're at the second item on our agenda here today, and second public comment. And is there anyone here left? Like to say anything? All right. All right. Bill, you don't want to say anything back there? I think all right. All right, we'll go around the committee here and court and see if anybody has any final announcements to make. Magistrate Logston.
Nothing, sir.
All right. Magistrate Dye.
Nothing.
Magistrate Hawkins.
Nothing today, Judge. Thank you.
All right. Magistrate Hound.
I'm just going to keep the ball rolling, nothing.
All right. Magistrate Jeffries.
Just one thing quickly. Just wanted to announce that on, let's see, what's the date here? March 22nd, Crystal Lake Clubhouse, they're having a lake and pond management event. And the registration info from, you can reach out to Oldham County Soil and Water Conservation District. And like I say, it's going to be at the Crystal Lake Clubhouse on March 22nd. That's all.
All right. Magistrate Woosley.
Thank you, Judge. On Friday, March 7th at 10:07, there's a statewide tornado drill. Normally that would be held tomorrow, but because of the storms coming in, they've moved that to Friday. So at 10:07, there's a statewide tornado drill. Monday, March 9th, at Sunday morning at 2 a.m., daylight savings times begins. So remind everybody to set your clocks ahead and also change your batteries. This past weekend, a group of youth from Westport Baptist Church voluntarily went out and cleaned up some of the Schumbach Park debris and a couple of the Riverfront Neighbors debris. So I just want to acknowledge their work and thank them. And finally, congratulate Tatum Malay, who's a student at Oldham County High School, who won for the fourth time in the year the state championship in wrestling for her weight group.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Magistrate Tice.
Nothing today, Judge.
All right. Magistrate Likens.
Thank you. I'm sure it's in your agenda to mention the public meeting on March the 18th.
Right. Thank you. Right. We will have two fiscal court meetings on March 18th. We'll have our regularly scheduled meeting at 2 p.m. And then I'm calling for a special meeting at 7 o'clock on the evening of March 18th to listen to our architect, JKS Architects from Hopkinsville, present their findings and initial presentation regarding the direction of the Oldham County Police Department. As most people know, the fiscal court did purchase a building in Crestwood. We've had at the old roller, what was it called, outdoor shooting range there. And so JKS will be coming with their presentation, and the court will have an opportunity to question and take a look at what's been developed to this point, see if we want to proceed or if we would want to make a decision to do something different. So we will invite the public to the meeting, and it'll be on the screen here, and we'll let people see what's been presented thus far on this building project. So, which is a fairly expensive project, so we want everybody to weigh in on it who feels they want to make a statement. So that'll be on March 18th.
What time, Judge?
7 p.m.
Is it going to be in this room?
Yes, right. You're right here, right. All right, with that, appreciate the court's support for everything today. This has been a long day. We've examined a lot of issues and had a good day, so appreciate everything. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.